This program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
Perfect conditions are greeting us this afternoon for our sunset safari. The clouds have parted and there is glorious sunshine that is baking down on the afternoon landscape, and that's perfect for our plans this afternoon because we are going to be bumbling about in the hopes that we can catch up with a large amount of elephants that are around at the moment. And Steve, well, it should be good for him too because it's going to help him locate maybe his pride of lions that he was tracking this morning because they should be resting now after a busy morning. There's lots of promise out here in the northeastern parts of South Africa, and we look forward to taking you on this, your very own African safari. Good afternoon and welcome everybody. Hope that you are relaxed, you are comfortable, whether that be by the pool, in your lounge, well, wherever you may be watching from. I hope that you are as excited about being out on safari as all of us are. Now, before we get into everything, I need to tell you my name, and my name is Tristan. On camera, I have Paul this afternoon, which is always wonderful. Nice to have our cam ops along for the ride because they always provide much entertainment for all of you and ourselves. Now remember, we are coming to you live from South Africa, and we're going to be coming to you live from various parts of the world. We're going to be here in Djuma, and as I said, I'm going to be bumbling looking for elephants and then following up on Tingana a little bit later. And Steve's going towards lions, and it sounded like there was a lot going on this morning not this morning, but actually during the day, as the Talamati Pride seemed to have found the 3 tortured lionesses, and there's a bit of a scuffle that's been taking place during the day. So he's going to try to see if he can find them at Ngala, and they're going to be bumbling about down the riverbed, which is always the most beautiful drive, looking for lioness and cubs, and hopefully we'll be able to see some cheetah at Tswalu. And of course, well, Pridelands always comes with the Ellies, and maybe there'll be a little surprise. You never know. Pixie Pan and the Cubs, or maybe Lagatha will make an appearance that side. Unfortunately, Pinda won't be joining us this afternoon, and so it will just be the rest of us here to entertain you. Now remember, we are going to entertain you, but we also want you to participate in all of this, and to do so, you need to use the hashtag Wild Earth on Twitter, or at FC on the YouTube chat stream, or various other places that you may be able to ask questions, and we shall answer them as much as possible, and hopefully we'll get into some good discussions today. Like I say, I'm on a bit of a bumble because it just is the most beautiful weather. The sun is out, and that hopefully means that we're going to see a lot of ellies moving about through Djuma. The marulas are fruiting, there's lots of water, and so that means that they should be out. And then as it cools down a little bit later, I'm going to go back to where I last had Tingana in the hope that he's on a bit of a territorial patrol. That's at least the idea. We'll see how it goes. Alice, you're saying you're so looking forward to some big cats this afternoon? Well, it seems like there's lots in store. Like I say, I mean, everybody seems to be on a bit of a cat mission this afternoon. It sounds like there's going to be a very intriguing sighting if Steve does manage to find those lions. I wonder if they are actually still competing at this stage or if they've separated out. That will be a very interesting dynamic. And then obviously lioness and cubs at Ngala is always a special thing, and then the cheetah and leopards, as we know, we always look for them between Tswalu and us. So we'll see how it goes. I mean, there's lots of promise. It's always an exciting time when you get to spend time with the big cats. I expect them to be a little bit sleepy to start off with up at this side of the world, and only to really get going a little bit later. But you can never be 100% certain. I mean, I've seen leopards moving around in 45-degree heat in the middle of the day and busy with things, particularly the cats of this area. We know Thandi and Klolamba are missioning girls and always full of purpose, so you never really know. Now, talking about Steve and his mission to go and find out what's been happening, let's send you across to him so he can say good afternoon.
Afternoon, everybody. Welcome to my vehicle. My name is Steve, joined by Marcello and Cameron. We are very excited to have you with us, of course. As always, apologies for our absence this morning. We had some technical issues that lost us from the show. But we're back, and we were following lions this morning. And sometime during the daytime, the three lionesses, I think I mentioned at some point, Torchwood Pride, was in this area. We were tracking another pride, which turns out it might have been the Talamatis. They were having a big interaction where we are right now, and we're trying to find them. So the Torchwood Pride was having a fight with the Talamati Pride, 3 on 14. So that is our plan for right now, try and find them. But so far, we're coming up empty-handed. But we don't know exactly where that took place. But we're just going to go slowly down to the drainage here. We're on Torchwood, down to the Mulwanini, and see if maybe, because it's suddenly gotten hot. It wasn't hot today, but the Torchwood Pride, apparently we're giving, well, the three lionesses of the Torchwood Pride, we're giving the youngsters of the Talamatis a proper run around. So whether there's going to be any interaction at this time of day is debatable, but just knowing where they are is always a nice thing. So keeping our eyes well and truly peeled. And I'll try and address what got left out in the Medicinal Monday discussion this morning. Hello, lions. Where are you? They might have headed over towards Chitwa for a drink. Otherwise, maybe over towards Torchwood. Either way, there's water that way and that way. Which way will they choose? Maybe they decided, okay, fair enough, and they split. But it'd be nice just to find some tracks of lions behaving badly. All I've seen so far is tracks of hyenas. It's not very helpful looking for lions. Hyenas aren't very helpful looking for lions. They're very helpful looking for leopards. But I suppose I have found a lion before in my life because of a hyena. But they don't normally lead you to them. You might find them running away and you think, okay, what's going on? And then you look closely. This is the Mulwanini, everybody, we're about to get into. This is where, okay, so there's some vehicle tracks here. Possibly. Okay, so I only got a little bit of that from Kiefer about difference between a male and female lion track. Yes, definitely. The male lion has got a much bigger foot, so the front toes are far, far larger or wider than that of the back. The size is a good one to utilize. Always good to look at size. Let me find it for you in this trusty book. It's nice to obviously have a look at it when we have them, but being unable to see tracks for you right now. Lion, what page are you on, Lion? 198. Okay, so size is a very good measure, Kiefer, and I always have a measuring tool. And if you don't have a measuring tool, a book like this has often got the ruler on the back. So rulers are always a winner. So you have a look here, the right front of the female. You notice that the toes are almost in line with the back pad, and the size 13 odd centimeters, where the male up at the top, much bigger and broader the front foot, and the toes splay out much further, and it says 14 centimeters. I've seen male lions up to 16 centimeters, so much, much bigger. So in the stand, they really, really do stand out. So here in the sand over here, this looks like a male track. You see the front foot is very, very broad, and there is the back track. So males' tracks much larger than females, and when you see them together, it's actually quite easy to discern the difference. There are some bigger females in the world. The Amber Eyes has got a very large track, but you shouldn't confuse male with female. Okay, well, we're going to carry on here, seeing if we can figure out where these elusive cats have gotten to. And while we do so, let's get back over to Tristan, who's found some antelope.
Well, as you can see, we have a kudu that was just unfortunately snookering us because it went behind a bush, which it's now going to do again. We were trying to see if we could get a clearer view, and it kept kind of going behind a bush. There we go, that's all right, we can handle that. But it's a little small grouping of kudu. It was actually fascinating to watch the one. That one's going to cross behind us and join the rest that have already run off in that direction. But what was fascinating about watching them is there's a fairly young kudu in the group, and this little kudu obviously has only been around, since after the rains last year, and this little drainage line that we're on at the moment is flowing at the moment, and this little kudu was fascinated by this flowing water. It was just staring at the water kind of coming past, and makes you wonder how much it's actually seen of these sort of drainage lines that are flowing. It's still curious. It was kind of like bending down and looking at its ears forward, and then eventually decided, no, this is okay, and hopped over the water and walked off. It was quite a cute little moment. It's crazy to think that sometimes animals don't even know certain seasons because of their, when they were born. Emma, give me 2 seconds. You're asking about kudus and nyalas. So I'll try and see if I think this book has got a diagram. It might not. Just give me 2 seconds. It's a question we get a lot about kudu and nyala, and the differences between the two of them. And it can be quite tricky for some people because obviously if you don't see them in real life, sometimes they look very, very similar. Now, these are just drawings. They're not actual photographs, so it might be... I don't know if they've got a nyala in here. Oh, they do. Okay. So let's start with the kudu. I'll start here. These representations are not the group best from a color point of view, so color is unfortunately not going to be that useful in these ones. But at the bottom here, you've got the kudu, you've got the female at the back, male in the front. Now, you'll notice with kudus, they have these spiraled horns, the males, that turn multiple times off their head. They have this very big white chevron over the eyes, then this kind of gray coat. So, I mean, they have gray here, but this is not the right color gray. And a very large kind of hump on their back. And they are quite big. If you have a look, a male can weigh 280 kilograms, so that's over 500 pounds, and he stands about 1.4 meters at the shoulder. Now, a nyala, on the other hand, I'll just flip over the page. No, that's a wildebeest. We don't need a wildebeest. Oh, no, wait, that's also not what we're looking for. Ah, there it is. Nyala over here, if you have a look, the females are more russet red coloration than the grey of a kudu. And the male is this chocolate brown. So he is just completely different to the male kudu. The male kudu has a more grey colour, this chocolate brown and very hairy stomach and legs and tail is quite a diagnostic feature. Also, their horns don't twist like you see on a kudu. It turns only once, and it has this kind of sharp setback and then straight up, as opposed to those multiple curls that come back. And if you look at the size of them, he only stands 1.2 meters at the shoulder, and she only stands 1 meter at the shoulder, and he only weighs 120 kilograms, so what's that, 250 pounds? So half the weight of a big adult male kudu, and she's only about 65 kilograms. So size is a big thing, but appearance, these guys are much more colorful than what the kudus are. The kudus are actually often referred to as the grey ghosts of the bush because of their coloration, whereas these guys are a rich brown and red coloration. Which helps you being able to identify them, but size is also a big thing, and habitat to some degree. You find these guys more in drainage lines than you do kudu, but kudu will sometimes go through them as well. Nice. Not the best diagrams, like I say, because they're not, unfortunately, aren't, proper photographs. Photographs always look better, but I don't have my mammals book with me, I don't think. No, I don't. Yeah, they do. Kudus and nyalas and bushbuck, all of the family have the most beautiful faces, and I always think it's because of that little white chevron that comes over the nose. It's a beautiful kind of marking, and it sort of softens the face a little bit, and that coupled with those big eyes and those massive ears, they do have a very cute kind of factor, especially little ones. If you see like a little baby nyala or bushbuck or kudu, really, really pretty little animals, very dainty as well, and the way that they walk is also different to a lot of the other antelope. They walk with a direct register, and you see it where they lift their feet and they kind of almost stand on their toes, and the back foot will land exactly where the front foot lands in order to to reduce the amount of noise that they're making and to be careful about where they're walking. So, and they are very, very cute animals. Their movements are cute. I thoroughly enjoy kudu, particularly of the kind of grouping. Big male kudu, there's very few things that are as impressive as a male with these huge horns that are kind of 6 feet long on top of their heads. It's a pretty impressive thing to see. I actually saw the other day in the Sabi Sands, I saw 3 bulls together, and all 3 of them were massive. They had these beautiful large spreads, so the horns were quite far apart, and they were very long as well. So magnificent specimens with these huge thick necks. They get these muscles that come down the sides of their necks that make them look even more impressive. It's absolutely amazing when you see those big bulls like that. They can be a bit mesmerizing, that's for sure. I remember seeing one in the Kruger that was crazy. He looked like the Incredible Hulk, or like he had been on a kind of steroid usage. His muscles were just popping out everywhere, and he had massive horns, huge head and neck. Actually, in fact, his head looked a bit funny because the skull is, there's not much meat on the skull itself, and the skull actually looked a little bit small compared to these horns and the head and the shoulders of this male kudu. I think he's still the largest kudu I've ever seen. I remember it very, very clearly. I was just checking as we were driving along here for any signs of our African hawk eagles. They nest along this road, but it's a bit late in the year for them. They should have finished by now, and the little one should have probably fledged. I haven't actually seen them there. Last time I was here, I didn't see them. I saw them flying around not far from here, but I didn't actually see them on the nest itself. The nest is this tree coming up on the left-hand side. It's so full of leaves now, I can't actually see anything. Let me have a quick squiz with my binos just to see. No, there's nothing on the nest. It's a very difficult nest to see because it's kind of obscured by a lot of leaves at the moment, and so the only way to see if there's chicks on there is often when the wind blows, you get a little ruffling of feathers on top. Leopard gill, no, they have home ranges, much like most antelope species, bar the very small ones. So things like Dyke and Steenbok, they're more territorial. But kudu, nyala, bushbuck, impalas, they're all going to move around and basically follow food. So where they can find good food is where they'll go, and safe habitats in order to kind of utilize their camouflage or their niche to survive. So no territorial kind of behavior with that, because ultimately as a herbivore, if we have a drought here but it rains, let's say 50 kilometers to the north, they're not going to stay here because they'll end up dying. So they rather move to where there's food, and kind of constantly kind of utilize the best food sources as they become available. So yeah, they're not. Oh, have a look at this fly that's on our bonnet here. An absolute beast. It's sitting. Oh no, it just flew away, of course. Rosalind, pretty warm. So seriously hot day for us here would be about, I mean, it has gone over 50 before a few times, but most of the time it will reach high 40s. So 46, 47, 48 is a very warm day for us. So in Fahrenheit, that would be what? I think 50 is about 120, if I'm not mistaken, somewhere around there. So it can get seriously hot out here. When we have as much rain as we've had now, I find that it doesn't get as hot in terms of temperature. The humidity spikes a lot more. So even though it might be 43 or 44, it feels like often around 50 degrees with all this moisture that's kind of coming off the ground. And in fact, before we had the rain 2 days ago, the humidity was unplayable. I remember we were looking for Sibui and the cubs in a drainage line on Chitwa, and it felt like the air was choking you. It was so close, and that coupled with this bright sunshine was just very unpleasant. So it depends on the year and how much rain we've had as to how the kind of heat comes through. And those of you that live in dry heat areas or humid areas will know how different it can be when you go to a place that has the opposing kind of heat. But yeah, it gets warm out here. Not as hot as Tswalu. Tswalu gets, I think, probably hotter than we do on average. We don't quite get as warm as they do, nor as cold as they do. It's far more temperate on this side of the world, which is thanks to the environment that we have around us. Okay, and then we're going to carry on. We're going to head towards Buffelshoek Dam, see if maybe some ellies might be swimming. In the meantime, let's send you across to Steve and see how his lion search is going.
Thanks, Tristan. Elephants are always nice to see on an afternoon. Well, I've been chatting with someone now, and they reckon I was on the wrong road, so I'm just going to go.
And we're looking for them around here to the otherwise there's nothing else.
So, just trying to communicate. I believe this is the road that the Telematis were last seen on. So we came further east, but we didn't get this far, and we turn around. There's quite a dense bit of vegetation, so keep our eyes peeled, shall we? Very likely that they're going to be very flat. It appears as if the Torchwood lioness has moved off. Okay, I don't see any lion tracks, but there's definitely some fresh vehicle tracks from this morning. Nice to see what's been happening. Follow the vehicle tracks to the right. This road's called Backdoor. It's a different access to Chitwa's main access. There's a lion track behind me. There's some nice tracks through the vegetation. Okay, lions, where are you? Very dense vegetation. I'm going to go just this way a little bit first. It's possible that they moved and came back again. Let's first just see where the vehicle tracks go. Look how densely vegetated it is here. Lions could be 5 meters off the road. We wouldn't see them. It's gotten quite warm this afternoon, not as warm as it has been or as it can get. I don't foresee it getting too warm today. Okay, tracks going the other way. Hello, Mhlantla. A very good question about wild lions. Let me just chat with this gentleman quickly, and then we'll be with you. Ali, there's some tracks heading back that way. But I didn't see anything, eh? I'll go and have a look. He said he left the Telematis on this road. Is this back door, eh? Is this back door? He said it was on this road.
The Telematis left the garden and came this way.
Apparently, but their tracks are heading that way. I was going to turn around now.
Check the driveway.
No. Okay. Thank you. That is Ali. He's from Chitwa. So, Tlatla, you want to know the lifespan of lions? So, male lions generally get up to about 10, 11, maybe 12 push. But often they're killed before that age. Lionesses, though, can live up to 16, 17 due to the fact that they're looked after in a pride. But male lions generally reach their maturity at 4.5, 5, and they hold their maturity or their dominance for 3, 4 years, 5 years if they're in a coalition, maybe a little bit more. But in natural wild populations, lions, 10, 11 is old for a male lion. Because once they lose their dominance, they've got nothing else to live for, and they often get killed in pride takeovers, or they get killed by the injuries that they sustain in the pride takeover. But a female, due to the fact that she's in the pride, she's mama, she's grandmother, she gets looked after, and she maintains a livelihood in the pride, and she can stay quite a bit longer. I'm sure there's some records, but I reckon 14 to 16 is sort of the age for lionesses in a pride. Obviously, they can also be killed at an earlier age. Okay, so he's checking that way. Let's just go back to Garia Main and have a look that they didn't cross. It's very possible that they might have. Nice to have some assistance on the ground. Don't have to do all the tracking ourselves, you see. It's possible the Telematis had a little bit of a interaction and decided, let's go back north where it seems a little bit more friendly. Lions are extremely aggressive to other prides, extremely aggressive. Even if they don't come to blows, the interaction between them is highly aggressive. If you've seen lions together on their own in a pride, they're aggressive. And when they see other lions, they're not very nice to each other. Not very nice at all. Okay, there is somebody walking on the road. That must be Dylan's tracker. Let's go give him a hand, because if he's tracking the lions and they cross north, well, then we're a winner. Got the tracker that side, eh? The tracker's that side. Okay, so there's a few people trying to find the lions now, and if they cross into Torchwood, we can go there. If they don't cross into Torchwood and they stay on Chitwa, well, we can still go there. Okay, here are the lion tracks, heading straight this direction.
Good afternoon, everyone. It is a beautiful by the way, guys, my name is Moritz. Behind the camera we've got Craig, and we are trying to follow up on those cheetahs from this morning. It seems like they've moved. Well, they've definitely moved, but we are just trying to see where they might be. There's a lot of giraffe in the area, and they're staring in all sorts of directions. Not one particular direction at any given time, though, so it's making it a little bit difficult for us to determine whether they're looking at something or whether they're just looking around or so. So we're just checking the road quickly, see if we have any tracks coming out. If not, then we know they must be still in this block somewhere around here. So yeah, this is quite cool. There's a tree, definitely it must be a ground agama though, that is actually sitting in the tree over here, and he's having a look at the world. So we are, guys. I haven't seen any tree agamas like the ones that we see in the Sabi Sands or in the Lowveld for that matter around here. Yeah, this one looks like a ground agama. Even though they're called ground agamas, it doesn't mean that they only spend time on the ground. I've seen many of them climbing trees and doing just what he's doing right now. What he might be having a look for, or just either baking in the sun, you know, with them being cold-blooded, or it could also be a case of him trying to see if he can't catch a butterfly that flies around or something like that. It is nice and warm, so I don't think they need to sun themselves too much. Even in the shade, they'll be able to heat up. You know, the ambient temperature is quite high, so still cool to just see him right on top of the tree having a look at the world. There's a southern black cuckoo that's also vocalizing. But yeah, so the plans for this afternoon just is to have a look and see if we can find those cheetahs, see if they wanted to make a kill or so. If not, if they're just lazy, or if we can't find them, we'll move on and see if we can't pick up on some lions maybe. Or, we'll see what the afternoon has to offer. But the first objective is the cheetahs. So we'll have a look and see what happens there. We're pretty close to, finish circling the block. If that is the case, that they haven't crossed through yet, then we know we can just scan this area pretty well. They might be lying underneath a bush somewhere or so. I would be if I were them at the moment. Like I said, it's nice and warm. But yeah, I think let's start moving again, just see if we can't find these tracks. And hopefully they haven't crossed out. As soon as they start crossing roads, then you've got an afternoon to work for. But if you don't see any tracks crossing out, it makes life a little easier, because then they're in this little block. And this block is not that big. It's actually a smallish one. So we'll be able to comb through it rather easily. There's tracks going through there. Alright guys, so we're going to have a look quickly and see if there's any tracks crossing out. So far there's only tracks going in, which means that might be from this morning or so. If we do find something, we'll let you know. But for the meantime, we're sending you over to Taylor, okay?
Well, we've got a beautiful blue sky with a couple of fluffy white clouds and, of course, a dark chanting goshawk. Unmistakably, unmistakably unidentifying. That is not English. Anyways, what I was trying to say is that it's hard to not mistaken this bird for any other goshawk species in this area with those bright orange legs. It's beautiful up in a Leadwood Tree, which is quite cool. And, of course, in typical Taylor fashion, getting all tangled on my words. My name is Taylor McCurdy, and on camera with me today is Kat, and we are here at Pridelands Conservancy, which is a part of Baluli Game Reserve and the Greater Kruger National Park. Now, it's not very often that we get to show you some birds, and the only reason why this feathered creature is staying put is because it is clutching something between its talons. Now, it took us a moment to notice that there was even something there, but you might even see bits of grass sort of blowing in the wind. You can see that. So that's what caught my attention. And then I got my binoculars out. Good girl, safari guide I am. And I saw some feathers, and it looks like this dark chanting goshawk, which is a beautiful bird, an elusive one we don't get to see very often either, has caught itself. I'm going to go with a common quail. Now, I thought maybe it could have been a Kalahari button quail, but I think that the dark colorations on its head, they almost look like a miniature crested francolin, if you will. But it is tiny, tiny. So it's obviously swooped on down and literally grabbed it straight out of the grass. And we have seen lots and lots of quails shooting up, normally just catching them in the middle of the road or just on the edge of the road where the grass sort of starts. So it is really awesome to see this. But these birds eat lots of different things. They've actually got quite a varied diet. They are exceptionally successful raptors. They'll eat snakes. They'll eat lizards and skinks, probably even things like tree agamas that would also be sitting out on this Leadwood tree. And then, of course, they'll catch any small mammals, and if there is a bird that can be caught, they'll catch one of those too. So something that we must remember is that the diet of birds can be quite varied as well, especially during drier season. Not so much for this bird, but for birds that typically eat insects. When the insects start to disappear, you might find that they'll supplement their diets with seeds or maybe even fruits and things like that. But this is really awesome, and it's a great opportunity once again to get some screenshots. So please remember to hashtag Wild Earth if you are using Twitter to chat to us. A really good way to see all your pictures. Annie, yes, it is a really great sighting. We were quite shocked as to why this bird didn't fly away. I mean, we all, Gat and I, the whole two of us in this car, were excited because we've been seeing quite a few of these dark chanting goshawks, but we haven't been able to put one on the camera because by the time we've turned and taken a second look at it, it's vanished off into the distance. So we quickly tried to grab a few pictures as well. This is probably the best photo I've ever taken of a dark chanting goshawk in my 8 years of guiding. So that kind of says something. But if it wasn't for the quail that has succumbed to its death, I don't think that we would have this opportunity. It would have definitely have flown off. So we probably won't stay here for too much longer, as I think that we might be disturbing it to some degree. That's why it hasn't started feeding just yet. I think so. What we'll do is we'll probably head off now. Cassie, you said that you love the color of this bird's beak. It is. It's got matching legs and a matching beak. The beautiful bright oranges. Maybe it is going to settle down with us and start feeding. I hope it does. That would obviously be the most ideal thing. But as fortunate as we are to see wildlife, one thing is we as guides always try and do is we try and be as sensitive as we can. Okay, hang on. Here we go. Maybe because we've been sitting quietly and we haven't repositioned, Gat is filming at an unbelievable angle. It has decided that it's okay and it's quite happy with us. So this is a really good sign. So like I said, I was maybe going to move off because it hadn't started feeding. But now that it has started to pluck its prey, almost like a leopard would remove the fur or hair from whatever antelope it had caught, birds of prey will do the same thing. They're not just going to devour it whole. They will pull out all those feathers. And as it does this, it will also give us a better idea as to what bird species are caught. Now, if there are any budding birders out there, I would love your help. It might be difficult to see, but if you do take a screenshot and you zoom on in, let me know if you think it is a common quail or perhaps a Kalahari quail. It's a difficult, a Kalahari button quail, sorry. It's a difficult one to try and figure out what it is. But that little bird is so small. Very, very, very small. And you can hear the wind just blowing through all the trees. It's been quite gusty today. There's supposedly a big storm building up on the east coast around Mozambique, and so I suspect that's what this weather is that's moving on in. You can see all the clouds moving behind the dark chanting goshawk now. Lots of them are lined with grey bottoms, as beautiful and fluffy as what they are. I think we might get some more rain this week, but if the wind keeps up, perhaps it'll pass on quite quickly. So it'll be a good meal for this bird. Going to fill it up quite nicely. Ooh, Rosalind, that's an interesting question. Now, you've asked, what is the biggest bird that we can see in Prideland? So, obviously, there's lots of different types of birds. If we talk about the biggest bird that typically lives on the ground, I'm going to say it's going to most likely be, what did you say, red-crested corehorn? Or black-bellied bustard? Probably be... Oh, ground hornbill. Yes, I forgot about those beautiful black birds with bright red on them. We saw them the other day. Southern ground horn will be the biggest one that spends the most time on the ground. Unfortunately, we don't see many Goliath herons around here. Otherwise, they could trump it. We don't actually see very many saddle-billed storks either. We occasionally see, maybe yellow-billed storks too. So we've got those contenders. And then we saw a martial eagle, which is the biggest eagle that we can see this morning, which was quite cool, not too far away from here. So we'll keep an eye out for that. Maybe it flies over or lands and allows a good viewing. Maybe it'll be a birding day today. And then, of course, Pridelands has a fantastic and very healthy population of vultures. So we could see whiteback vultures, Cape vultures, which are bigger than the whiteback vultures, and if we're very lucky, even a leopard-faced vulture. So there are a number of really large bird species that we can see, and we'll try and keep an eye out for a few of them, and maybe we'll get to show you them.
Well, as you can see, we're doing a spot of birding ourselves at a dam. Unfortunately for us, Buffelshoek Dam was a bust. There was no swimming elephants, which made me sad, but we did find a grey heron at Tambuti Dam, which is always nice to see. It's busy hunting at the moment. It's looking for any signs of little frogs or fish or crustaceans that might be, or even little baby terrapins for that matter, that might be hanging around on the edge of the water. They're constantly looking for food at this time of the year, and they're lucky because of all the rain. There really is food everywhere. There's frogs all over the place, which forms a large portion of a heron's diet at this time of the year. He's looking quite stoic, isn't he, as he stands there, or she, to be able to say which one. Herons are not easily kind of sexually... what's the word for it? I can't even think now. I've gone blank. They're not easy to tell the difference between the sexes. There we go. I'll get there eventually. I'm getting old, so these things happen from time to time, where one's brain does a malfunction and you forget what you're actually trying to say. But you find that they basically walk along the edges of these water points and just kind of poke their beaks in everywhere and try and see what they can find. I was hoping that we'd also see the dwarf bittern that is here at the moment, but it too is in hiding, unfortunately. Much like the frogs, I think it's taken cover. Maybe this heron has outcompeted. But anyway, we're going to carry on. We'll go and check around where we last saw Tingana. Hopefully we'll have a bit of luck somewhere that way.
Hello everybody, we have found some very green grass, and if you look closely in amongst the grass lying up
the other guides will return, but find it very disappointing and annoying. Oh, hello everybody. Sorry about that. I was just reading a long message out to Kat. So we're still sitting here with our dark chanting goshawk and the beautiful blue sky and the clouds. Although I don't know, Kat, how long the sky is going to be blue for. We might get rained out again. We've had a consistent amount of drives where the rain has fallen upon us and we've had to go home, which is quite sad. I can't believe this bird is still here. It's very impressive. It's just taken a break now from plucking its prey. And we have heard lots of elephants rumbling in the distance. So that is our plan. We will go and look for elephants because there's a new elephant that I want to show you. I'm going to try and put her on camera. I also saw Susan, so we'll look for Susan too, just so you can understand where we'll be going. Oh, seems like we might also be having a few audio issues. I apologize for that. Let me just tighten everything and make sure all the things are good. Kat is giving me a rather large thumbs up, which must mean that we are fine. So that's good to know. Well, I think what we're going to do, seeing as though a couple of insects and sounds like maybe a white-browed scrub robin and a couple of other birds have started chirping, let's just enjoy a moment and listen to them. I'm not sure how much of the wind you can also hear though. It's starting to get worse and worse, although I do like to hear the wind blowing through the grass at this time of the year. It's very, very nice. And then there's a very chirpy cricket. I don't even know what's making that sound. Something is performing some kind of stridulation, whether it's rubbing its wings together or rubbing its legs together, creating that sound that you can hear. I have not quite become accustomed to the calls of insects other than cicadas. That's an impossible sound to miss. Now, William, you might have missed it a little bit earlier when I mentioned what type of tree this is, but that's okay because it'll give us a chance to zoom all the way out and just show you how magnificent it is. So this was once a leadwood tree. One of the heaviest trees that we have in this area, if not the heaviest. It is beautiful, and unfortunately it is no longer with us, but it will continue to stand like this for a very, very long time. Look how it is. It almost looks like it's creeping and reaching for the heavens, if you will, but it is no longer growing. Optical illusion. It's very cool though, and it obviously makes a huge difference when you've got the nice clouds. Can we show everybody the dark, terrible weather that's coming off to the right? I'll just show you. So look how the weather is changing. It was beautiful blue skies, and then of course the wind picked up, and now all the wind is blowing. I'm going to try and jump onto a satellite. Maybe it's something you all want to join me and do. Maybe you can find a site where you can track weather and have a look and see if there is a big tropical cyclone or something along those lines building up around Mozambique, because that is where this weather is actually coming from. So it's all coming from the sort of southeast at the moment, blowing in quite quickly, but it is changing, and it doesn't look like there's going to be a break either. So not quite big thunderous clouds, those big cumulonimbus clouds we saw the other evening when we were trying to get you a bolt of lightning, which we were sadly unsuccessful at, but we also showed you a very dramatic sky. That's one thing that I've noticed that reminds me a little bit of the Mara, is the dramatic skies that we tend to see here at Pridelands. It's really beautiful, and in my mind I close my eyes and I think of the Drakensberg as the Olololo Escarpment, although I feel like I'm insulting the Drakensberg by calling it the Olololo Escarpment, because it is far superior, even though that is also a great landmark that provides beautiful views. Oh, there we go. The dark chanting goshawk has now started to eat something, so that's good. Have you plucked enough feathers away that you can reach down to the flesh? Yes, Penelope, I concur, and I'm sure everybody concurs with you. I know birds are not everyone's cup of tea, but when you see a bird like this with striking orange skin, and then of course those dark grey feathers and the lovely barring that it has across on its vent and on its breast, really does make for quite a pretty picture. Unfortunately now there's a grey cloud behind it, so it's not as glamorous. It's obviously nicer when you've got the blue backdrop, but it won't be long before that all clears up. There we go. Thank you, clouds. Now, I would have thought that this bird would have eaten its prey a lot quicker than what it is. I mean, it's really taking its time right now. And it doesn't look like it's eaten anything else. Its crop is not particularly full. No, it's not full at all. There's no lump just below its throat. and sort of just above its breast. So that's where all the food is going to be stored. So they're just going very, very slowly. So it's found a small point. You can see there's a little bit of flesh that's showing. Not that there is much on a little quail. They really, really are small. I don't know how often the quails feature on the show, in fact. I don't think I've ever put one live. I know we've definitely listened to the sounds of a the Karachani button quail. My goodness, their calls are beautiful. Very eerie, loud noises for such a small little bird. I'm just quickly having a look to see how much the common quail weighs, because I do not know this information off by heart. 95 grams? Goodness gracious. No wonder they don't fly. They'll blow away in the wind. No, I'm joking. They do fly short distances, but they don't quite fly like a southern yellow-billed hornbill. I don't know why I couldn't think of any other bird to describe. They have a nice sailing flight. I suppose they do fly quite well. Very small. So Senac, we do find other goshawk species here, and you're wondering which one we'd probably see. The most common one would be the Gabar goshawk, which is actually much smaller in size than the dark chanting goshawk. The dark chanting goshawk is probably close to about 50 centimeters. So if you take a ruler and you add 2/3 of another ruler, that will sort of give you the length of that, whereas a Gabar goshawk is just from head to the tip of the tail is just the length of a ruler, so it's much sort of smaller. So they're quite common out here, and they are easily confused with lizard buzzards. They look very, very similar, but if you manage to catch one just sitting up on the branch, if you see a little stripe under its or on its throat, then you know that it's a lizard buzzard. Well, that's what helps me. I'm not a particularly fantastic birder. I know Tristan's definitely more excited by birds than I am, but I try to get into it. I mean, obviously as a guide, it's something that you have to know. You have to get into birds. You need to know the birds of your local area, but I would much rather have my head stuck in the grass and look for insects, or wade through a marshland to find some frogs. But we all have our preferences. But now you can see how little flesh is actually on that bird. Look at that. I mean, that's a tiny little wing. Hey? That would do you no good. You'd have to eat the whole thing. I mean, for those of you that have been lucky enough to be served a quail, each to their own, you'll know how small they are. I suppose this is like a real delicacy now for this dark chanting goshawk. Dark chanting goshawk, are you as appreciative as we as humans are if we are fortunate enough to have some quail? Probably not. Probably doesn't know the difference. I think it beats eating a lizard, that's for sure. I don't think that would taste very nice. Opinions?
Oh, definitely quail.
Quail over lizard? There we go. That'd be an interesting poll. I suppose anything is edible out here, and when you're a bird like this, you can't really be fussy. You have to take what you can get in that very moment. Well, speaking of Tristan and his fondness of birds, let's go find out if he's had any interesting bird sightings as of late.
Well, we are looking for Tingana. Is exactly where I left him this morning. I'm just trying to see if I can see his tracks anywhere. I see he's walked on the road here. So he came out of this little area and has been walking that way. I'll try and show you his footprints. What's weird about it is he was there, so he's gone back and then walked along the road. So his track is just on the road itself. It's a little bit tricky to see, but I'll show you what I'm talking about. But what I don't understand is why he's come back and around. The wind is not blowing in that direction, so he shouldn't actually be doing this. But anyway, we'll figure it out. But if you have a look here, this is his back foot that we've got that's walking. Then his front foot is over there. And you can see that long toe in his back pad that he often has. The one with the claw, I don't see it here, it might be a little bit further on. There's one that's got like a little claw mark that sits there like that you know is him. But obviously he was disturbed maybe by an ellie, and then he turned and he came onto the road. Now from here, I see his tracks kind of get to this point and then they disappear. It seems like a car has driven here already, which is not ideal. Would have been nice to come here before cars drove here, because it would have made our lives a lot easier in terms of finding him. If we know exactly where he goes into the block, it can help us with trying to relocate him. All right. Just trying to think. The good news also is that we can off-road on these crests, so where you see a lot of marulas, we can off-road again this afternoon. It's dried out enough. So it is a worthwhile endeavor trying to follow him or find him, because we can hopefully follow him around a little bit this evening. Okay. And I know that these weren't here this morning because we were here this morning and he didn't walk here, he walked through the bush instead. I just need to double check. He was there. Donnie, no, I don't think so. I mean, we're still seeing and observing him scent marking. So that would suggest that he's not fully nomadic. But he's definitely not as territorial as he used to be. Sorry, I'm just trying to see if I can spot his tracks here. It seems like a car has driven over all of them, which is a little on the frustrating side because it's going to make finding him quite tricky. The roads are hard enough as it is and tracks are difficult enough to see at the best of times. Oof, I don't know, I don't see any tracks here. Unless he's gone to that marula tree just to lie down. Tell you what, let's just check a little bit further. There's a little junction coming up. Maybe he's crossed into Djuma. But there's definitely nothing here. So what I'm looking for is where the car hasn't driven, for just a pad or a toe or something that can indicate to me that he was here. The track might be cut in half. It might be kind of just a toe sticking out, which is fine because I know that the tracks are still pretty good. It's just to give me at least an idea of how far he's gone. But you see there's nothing here. Okay, I just want to quickly check this little junction here and then just check round onto Buffalo's cut line, just to see if maybe, just maybe, he went out there. He could, of course, just be lying underneath that marula tree right where I got out. The grass is so long there that I would never even see him unless I drove on top of him. No, he came here. So it looks like he's crossed into Djuma. I've got to try and see which way he went from here. There's definitely one small partial track, which I'll try and show you, just to show you what we're kind of dealing with when there's been a few cars on top. Now, where did I see it? Don't go away, sunlight, because I need you to see. Ah, there it is. Alright. So, you can see that he walked on the edge of this road, and the cars obviously with turning, the left wheel was cutting the track, but here is his back pad, half of the track. So there's the tire that's gone over it, here's the toes, there's that long toe again, and then here is his front pad over there, all going in this direction. So I expect what he's done is gone on to Djuma and hopefully down Gallagher shortcut. I hope he hasn't gone too far, but at least I know no one has driven there, so we should be able to pick up the track on that road. Hello, because I saw him this morning right where these tracks are, and they're on top of my vehicle track, so I'd be surprised if it's anybody else. It should be him. We just got to be careful that he didn't come over and then down the boundary. Doesn't look like it. He might have drank at this little puddle. Sorry, I'm just trying to check to see where he's gone here. Don't know if he actually came straight over the road or if he went down the boundary. Let's just... Nobody should have driven this road today as far as I'm aware of. It's possible that somebody did during the course of the day, but they shouldn't have, unless they were going to Longpole to go and fix the equipment there or something like that. William, no, not really. Animals, for the most part, particularly something like a leopard, is going to try and hide from you as best that it can. And if it feels like it can't hide from you, it's going to tell you that it's there and it's going to warn you. The idea for them is that they're also quite fearful of us, just like we are of them in many respects. And so they try and just let you know that they're there, or most of the time, what you'll counter is that they're just going to run away from you and try and get as far away from you as possible. They don't want anything to do with you or what you want to be, or kind of, your presence, and they just dart off and then lie flat and just stay still. The times that they're aggressive is when they have something to defend. So if it's like a cub, or they feel like you're trying to take something from them or hurt them, then they can potentially be aggressive. But the normal kind of mode is to get away from you and put some distance and rely on their camouflage. So no, not really scared. Also been doing this for a while, so trust my own instincts and judgment in terms of being on foot, where is safe, where isn't safe, what is safe and what isn't. So hypothetically, walking into grass that's head height is not safe. That's a silly idea and something that shouldn't be done, because ultimately all you're doing is you're going to walk and stand on that animal, or basically be right next to it, and so you're giving that animal very little chance to react, and that then makes it even more dangerous. So you try and avoid walking in places where it's too thick. But talking about little predators, and there's a predator on the termite mound, not the one we're looking for. It's the smallest of our predators that we get out here, or smallest carnivore, should I say, that we have on the ground, and it's a little dwarf mongoose that's perched on top of the mound over there. It would be nice if it was Tingana, but alas, it's not. These guys are super cool. I always enjoy them. They must be having a tough time at the moment, with the grass being as long as it is at the moment. Cruising around in it must feel like being trapped in a massive skyscraping jungle of grass where predators could come from anywhere. It's a lot harder for them to see in this, especially things like
just off Champagne Road.
Especially things like snakes. You'll find that they will be quite a big threat to mongoose at this time of the year, because they'll be moving around trying to forage and find food, and they bump into, let's say, a python or a mamba, or potentially even something like a puff adder, and they get kind of grabbed from there. And it's why what you'll find is always one kind of sentinel up on top, just looking around, making sure that it's spotting any potential danger for the others. Right, we'll try and see if we can find Tingana. Hopefully he hasn't gone too far.
This is Rusty. He's my favorite vehicle, and we've been through all the good times here in the bush. Now, if you feel a connection to Djuma Game Reserve like I do, then we have a fantastic opportunity for you. You can have your name engraved on a brushed metal plaque just like this one, and we will attach it to Rusty so you can always be with us on safari in spirit. We will even send you a digital photograph once your plaque is mounted on Rusty. Spaces are limited, so grab your spot now.
Our first Wild Earth Explorers competition has closed, and we have a winner. Congratulations to Chantal Sleep from Benoni in South Africa.
I felt totally overwhelmed for winning this prize. I will be taking my son with me, and I can't wait to share this experience with him.
Chantal and her son have won a behind-the-scenes Wild Earth experience at the magnificent and beyond Ngala tented safari camp. The prize includes a 3-night stay and a chance to sleep out in the unique Ngala treehouse.
I would like to thank Wild Earth for making this dream come true, and I encourage everybody to subscribe, to become an explorer, and stand the chance to win these amazing prizes, and so much more.
For this month, we have a brand new prize. you could be jetting off to Tswalu in the Kalahari for a 3-night stay at the luxurious Motsi Lodge. Open to all Wild Earth explorers who have signed up before the end of January 2021. Terms and conditions apply. Have you been watching Wild Earth and dreamt of being right there on safari with one of the guides? Well, now you can. Wild Earth is offering you a chance to buy a ticket to dream. You or a friend can hop on board a live Wild Earth show and join our guide on safari. The ticket is redeemable at any of our locations, anytime in the future. Only a limited number of tickets are available, so don't wait. Get your ticket now and start dreaming. Terms and conditions apply.
Well, we haven't had much luck since you last saw us. I'm just trying to go back to where I saw the last tracks because I don't pick up anything on the fire break, nothing on Gallagher shortcut that I can see. So I'm just checking Buffalo's boundary now in case all he did was come off the road and just lie in the grass or walk down the road and cut on one of these mitre drains. Tingana likes to lie in a mitre drain. It's a nice little spot to rest, particularly if the sand is still a little bit damp. It's a lot cooler than anywhere else. Julie, so leopard scats in terms of tracking them, it's part of the sign. So when we talk about tracking, we're not only talking about sorry, I just thought I heard something here on the left moving. Maybe just a little Franklin or something. So we're not just talking about footprints. Footprints are a huge part of tracking, yes, but when you start to get into grass like this, footprints become almost null and void. You can't see tracks in grass this long. So what you're then looking for is other things. You're going to start looking for signs of grass that is bent over, and scat would be one of those things. Funny enough, a leopard scat is something that you pick up sometimes a lot quicker than their tracks, because leopards really, mostly, unless they're on a kill, will defecate on a path. So either a game path or on a road, so you'll find their scat and then you see their tracks and you go from there. But we use all kinds of different things in order to track leopards. It's not just about their footprints. You've got to use a little bit of cunning and think about how grass will bend. You use their urination a lot, so where they urinate is often a really good sign that they've been there. You kind of pick up the strong smell, and if you can see the droplets on the little leaf or on the branch, that often tells you that it's very, very fresh, and you kind of go from there. So there's a number of different things that we're using in order to try and pick them up. So many cars have driven here, I can't see where he went from that junction. I think what I'm going to do is do a bigger loop. I'm going to go around and then come up Gallagher shortcuts. If nothing, then we'll jump off on foot here and do a little walk around and just see if there isn't anything there. Okay, while I do that, let's send you across to Steve with the cats of his own. Welcome back, everybody. Not sure how much of the lion segment we did earlier with you. We seem to have lost you again. But we are here with 3 of the Torchwood lionesses. Flat in the grass. Not sure how much of it you got earlier. I was trying to be a little bit funny with regards to lions in the grass, but I think we lost you. So here we are. We're going to go and try follow up on the Telemates shortly, because they're a bigger pride. I don't think they're very far from here. They only would have just moved away enough to prevent them from interacting again. We're discussing how violent lions can be, and lionesses can be very violent. Dark Mane would have been a male that would have probably known both prides. He would have probably just been going, okay, ladies, you sort it out.
Again, I apologize, everybody. I have no idea where and how we lost you. It seems every time I mention lions, we lose signal. I'm not sure how much to repeat again. It'll be the third time saying the same stuff. I'm still not sure where we've lost you at. So these are lions, and they're lying flat in the grass. And they are the tortured pride. But we're right on Kalahari Main, and there are a few vehicles scheduled to be joining us. So we're going to be moving out, going into Tortured itself, so we can follow up on the pride. About how violent interactions between lionesses can be, and no doubt it would have been something like that before, although none of these three that I've seen seem to have any injury. Sorry about the noises. But male lion, dark man would be the Telemates. He probably just stood back and watched the lionesses do their thing. He might have vocalized. I doubt he would have got involved. He just would have watched the intricate behavior between the females. And we caught up with Peter earlier from Nkoro. He said he actually saw a little bit of the interaction, and the lionesses of this pride were giving the youngsters of the Telemates a bit of a rev. Call of the Cape Turtle Dove telling us to work harder. Work harder we shall, Cape Turtle Dove. We'll go and find more lions shortly. Please send any comments or questions you might have through to #WildEarth. Throw them in on the YouTube chat stream at FC. Yeah, everybody, we're quite excited we found the lines too. We were hoping for a little bit of interaction. But sometimes it's just noise really, isn't it? Lions interacting can be quite something to behold. Lions feeding, lions growling, the noises that they make. All very, very earth-shattering. If you've ever been involved in lion conflict, it really is something to behold. Okay, well, there's another vehicle wanting to join, so I'm going to make some space. Go ahead to Tortured and have a look for the Telemati Pride. See where they might have gotten to. As I said before, I'm not sure if you got me or not before, but I don't think they've gotten too far away. Deirdre's cuckoo. I think we might also do a spot of birding while we go. Tailor lions sleep all the time. They sleep all the time. The only time they don't sleep is when they're very hungry. If they're very cold, though, they can move around a bit. But in general, they sleep for 20-odd hours a day, maybe even more. If they're full, they go through bouts of feeding and sleeping. So they really do slumber more than most animals you'll encounter. But when it's hot, they generally do reduce their activity to the coolest times of the day. But in the middle of day, if it's overcast and cool, yes, you can have them hunting and being mobile. But it also depends on whether they're hungry or not. If they're not hungry, lions won't do too much. Thirst and hunger, territorial behavior, mating, the only real reasons for lions to be active. Other than that, it's a pretty slow existence for them. But when they do move, they can be very mobile, can cover great distances, and surprising to many how many kilometers they can cover. They really do eat the kilometers when they walk at night. But they're not very far from where we had them 2 nights before. And they're not far from where they were found this morning. So generally, you won't find them too far away from where they were in the morning due to the temperature. But because of the interaction between the two prides, definitely has forced them to move. Okay, there's another vehicle. I've got to make some space, so excuse me while we just exit the sighting. Thank you, Torchwoods. We shall see you another time. Watch out for this little false marula. Okay, great. Well, we're going to carry on onto Torchwood to see if we can track down the other lions. While we do so, let's go to Tristan, see if he's had any luck with Tingana.
Well, good luck, Steve. Hopefully you find what you're looking for. I'm trying to see if I can find Tingana. I've picked up his tracks and kind of found where he's going, but they are almost nondescript in places. He's come down before the cut line and then he's cutting kind of into Djuma. I was hoping he was going to be lying in this mitre drain. His tracks went beautifully onto this like wet mitre drain, and I thought maybe we're going to find him at the end of the mitre drain just sleeping nicely under a little shady bush there. But alas, it doesn't look like he's there. So I'm now just checking our northern fire break to see if I can pick up any sign of him. The problem is that this road is very rocky, and after the rain, rocks and hard soil make for some of the hardest tracking that you can do, and also tracking by a vehicle is less than ideal in this situation. You kind of need to be on foot more than on a vehicle, but we'll try. We'll give it our best shot. You'll notice that I'm driving differently to how we would normally drive. There he is, right there. Yes. I love it when a plan comes together. Hello, boy. And you're not only right there, but you're posing more beautifully than we could even ask for. So I'm just going to try and go around a little bit. So at least we managed to find him, which is good news. And like I say, he's sitting looking more regal than you could ever ask for on top of a termite mound. Made our life very, very easy, that's for sure. Have a look at this. Wait, hopefully a marula doesn't fall on his head with this. Boy. Are you looking up in the tree as well, just to make sure? That's so cool. Exactly what we wanted. So even though we had a bit of a tough time with tracks, they were kind of moving in the right direction, and we managed eventually to find kind of where he goes and managed to pick him up. Like I say, sitting perfectly out in the open. Isn't that beautiful? It's kind of idyllic is what you want when you think of a leopard in summer. This is often what you think of, is a beautiful termite mound, green grass. Are you going to get going now? Did we find you at just the right time, or are you going to move? You decided that's better. Okay. So we're going to get your bottom. hold on, let's move forward a little bit. The nice thing is that we have a car that can move around. So even though he's showing us his bottom now, I wonder if he was watching me because I was off the vehicle a little bit walking around. Maybe that's why he had spun around, and now that he's figured out, well, it's just us, he's not too concerned. I'm going to actually go a little bit further around because otherwise we're going to have him heavily backlit, which is going to make life a little bit tricky. I think if we come from here, that's going to be a little bit better. Is that all right, Hippo? I think that should be okay. Like I said, it is a little bit backlit, so you'll get a bit of a silhouette or a blown out sky, but it should be all right. I was talking about it this morning that you'll find that these cats are spending a lot more time sitting up on top of mounds and in trees now because the grass is so long, especially if they're looking for food or they hear an alarm call or they hear an animal close by. These kinds of mounds are going to help with being able to see what's coming their way. If they sit down in the grass, it's very difficult for them to see what's coming, and they don't want to be caught off guard either by a predator or a prey animal that gets too close and they don't respond in time. So we're going to see a lot more of this in this summer. While the grass is still so long and so green and so full of parasites, a lot of the cats are going to be sleeping elevated, or particularly, like I say, leopards, and you'll find lions are going to be a lot on roads and riverbeds and anywhere where they can kind of be out of the grass but in some sort of shade. It's a common thing to see when you get huge amounts of rain. That was cool. It's been a while since I've tracked a leopard. Always nice when you manage to actually track them down and find them. Penelope is posing perfectly. It was better the way he was before, but we'll take it now. It's certainly not the worst pose that I've seen. He's kind of got his head down. He's going to fall asleep now. I think he saw me walking. That's why he was kind of propped up and looking in the direction of where we came. And now that he's realized, there's no one walking around, he's going to start to flop down. The sun is not that hot at the moment, so he can afford to be on a mound like this. And on top of that, there's a nice cool breeze that is blowing. So he'll be nice and cool up there and be able to just take it easy and kind of rest and not have to worry too much about the heat this afternoon. Didn't make it easy though, did you, Tingana? Well, actually, he did make it easy. If it wasn't for all the vehicles that had driven around, it would have actually been a fairly simple tracking exercise. It's not like he walked that far. Strong legend. So differences between the leopards is pretty easy once you see them a lot. If you haven't seen them a lot and you don't see leopards regularly, it can be a little bit tricky. They all probably look the same to some people. But the easiest way for when you're starting out and learning is to start to understand that they have unique spot patterns. So every single leopard, particularly above the whisker line, so if you see on his face, he's got whiskers, and then just above that, he's got a whole set of spots. Now, those spots are spots that are used. You're going to kind of use them and count them just above the whiskers, and that will give you a number, which would be able to tell you which leopard it is, because that's unique across all leopards. You'd also use the spots above the eyebrow. They have unique spots above their eyes, and then on their body, like Tingana, he's got a little smiley face on his left shoulder. That helps you identify him. But for us, it gets to a point where we see them regularly enough that we recognize just ear structure, facial feature, size, eye color. All these things will help you from a distance. Remember that most of the time we're not seeing what you're seeing now, which is this very highly zoomed in image of his face. Most of the time what we see is either a tail or a side profile or a head in the grass, and so you start to learn to understand the dynamic of their body shapes, their facial structures, and much like you would be able to identify, I don't know if you own a pet, a cat or a dog, or even a fish, you would be able to identify your fish, cat, dog, / whatever animal you own, if you do, as being yours as opposed to somebody else's. And it's the same with these guys. We see them regularly enough to understand that they are different and that they all have a slightly different appearance from afar even, and that helps us to be able to kind of ID them. But the spot pattern is really the scientific way to do it, long story short. That is the most perfect summer leopard, bar the backlighting. The rest of it is pretty good. He's chosen quite a nice termite mound as well. It's not too grassy. Some of the termite mounds at the moment, I was actually looking at one yesterday where the mound itself looks beautiful in the winter. It's clear and it's in this nice spot, and I looked at it yesterday and you can't even tell there's a termite mound there anymore. There's just grass all over the place. The mound itself is now covered in grass, and so if a leopard were to sit on that, you wouldn't see it. So he's chosen at least a really nice mound to take a rest. He's also got a nice little bit of shade with his marula tree, so he is definitely in a winning little spot. I don't think, though, that he's going to stay here. You can see he's yawning a little bit. He's kind of grooming. That's often an indication that he's thinking about moving. The problem that we're going to have with him is that he's heading the wrong direction. So what he's doing is he's heading, you can see it's quite sloped here, so the ground is going up behind him. So we are heading down the slope, the direction of his travel. And what that means is we're coming from a crest area where we're seeing a lot of marulas, and we're going to travel down a slope towards where what is known as a seep line. Now, a lot of you might be kind of unsure of why we haven't been off-roading, and the seep lines really are the reason. What happens is rain falls on top of these crests, which are generally quite big particles of soil. It funnels down and then it hits a clay underlying layer of soil. And at that clay junction, the water is then forced back to the surface. So on that slope, as it's coming down, it hits the clay and it's then pushed back out of the ground and starts to flow. And what that causes is a hugely wet, soggy, sodden area. And so when you drive there, you'll be on hard ground and all of a sudden your car will just kind of disappear underneath you and you'll just get stuck in this slushy kind of chocolate mousse mud. And it leaves big damaging ruts then, and those ruts then lead to erosion and can really damage the ecosystem. And that's why we don't off-road. And what I'm basically getting to is the direction, if he starts to travel and he doesn't use the road, means that we probably won't be able to follow him. He's about to hit the seep line. The seep line is about 50 meters down the slope from where we are at the moment. And then from there it's into Mordor, which is the drainage line systems that run north of Gallego Pan, which at the best of he looks so good as well. Look at the size of his chest. You can see his kind of head comes into it and actually almost makes his muzzle look tiny to the sort of width of the chest. And you notice also how he's sniffing the air. So because of how the wind is blowing, you'll find leopards and lions do this regularly, is that they just turn their nose up slightly to the air and they just smell, and that's telling them all the information that they need to know. It's telling them, all right, there's maybe impalas close by, maybe there's a smell of hyenas, maybe there's an elephant, or whatever it may be. They're able to detect these smells. And in Tingana's case, often what he's looking for is the smell of a carcass. And he's going to try and then, if he picks up the scent of maybe something that's dead or hears something on the wind, he'll then start to move in that direction to go and try and take it. Holistic, his ears are tatty for a number of reasons. Fighting might be one of them. You might find that a little claw has nicked him. It could also be from hunting when they're chasing animals through these bushes. In the adrenaline of the chase, they sometimes get dragged around, particularly when they're hunting big animals, and then thorns will kind of nick the ear and rip it a little bit. And also what you're finding is that during mating, a number of these little ear issues come during mating, because the mating process in leopards is quite volatile, and the female often turns and smacks him and kind of rips little holes into his ear. And then the sort of small little kind of cutouts, if you want to call it, a lot of that is caused by ticks. Over the years, as ticks slowly feed on the edges of his ears and he scratches them and he kind of tries to clean them, so he pulls sometimes little pieces of his ear off and you get this more tattered look to the animal. So it's a combination of multiple different things that leads to the tatty-eared look that older leopards take on. Such a pretty picture, isn't it? With that little bit of side light just kind of hitting his face, just highlighting that golden coat. Very, very cool. And it's nice because he's got his ears forward at us. Often leopards kind of turn their ears backwards. So it's always good when the ears are perfectly straight and symmetrical and both of them are pointing forward like that. You see now how his ears have turned backwards? So it's always nice when they look at you that both ears come forward and listening kind of in your direction. It always makes for the best sort of pictures and video. I'm intrigued to see where he goes from here, purely based off the fact that I suspect it was him that was on quarantine calling last night. We weren't sure last night. I mean, we put money on maybe Mulawati, and it could have been Mulawati. We don't know for sure. It's just where the tracks came off quarantine from where we heard that leopard calling, and where they kind of headed would indicate that it was him where he was found this morning. It might not have been, like I said, it might have been Mulawati, and the tracks just coincidentally turned somewhere we didn't see, and he was not that far away and maybe was attracted by the calling. Not 100% sure. But what will be interesting is if it wasn't him, is he maybe heading back this way because he heard that, and is it maybe because he's following the scent of this leopard that Steve saw? Steve saw what he thought was a young male leopard on the dam wall at Paitilla, was it yesterday morning? Might have been yesterday morning. And it was kind of chased by baboons, so we didn't get a very good view of it. So maybe he's picked up that scent and he's kind of moving in that direction. Could also be that Tlalamba's around, or it's just that he's walking into the wind because he, as an experienced cat, maybe has learnt that wind direction plays a huge factor in his ability to be successful in hunting. The wind is blowing straight into his face at the moment, which means it's carrying all the sound and scent from ahead of him rather than from him to whatever is ahead of him. If he was to walk and let's say an impala was in front, his smell is going to be blowing constantly onto them, whereas now his scent is blowing away from him and away from the predator the prey that he is potentially walking towards. So it could be why he's heading in the direction he's heading. It's interesting because he normally takes Gallagher's shortcut. This time he's going directly in the wind. The wind is coming from the southeast, and he's walking at a perfect angle that the wind is coming from, which is quite intriguing. It's a debate we've had many, many times amongst a lot of us that it's just coincidence. James, I think, and Steph, or maybe Brent, are of the opinion that it's coincidence, whereas I think myself and Steve and a few others are of the opinion that it's much more calculated than that. Animals are pretty smart, and if we as humans have learned that when we approach dangerous game that we use wind in order to not be detected, I'm pretty sure that predators that need to survive off being undetected have worked out that same theory and have used it to their advantage and don't just kind of sit in, a place where they're going to be detected a lot easier. We know animals are hugely perceptive to smell, particularly prey animals. Olivia, I mean, these questions, we get them every now and then, and it's difficult to know. I don't think so. I mean, maybe he's associated the fact that with that tone and kind of sound pattern is always used around him, but there's no kind of positive reinforcement by using his name. It's not like I'm saying, Tingana, come, here's a sausage, or here's an impala, or here's a whatever, a steak, and him learning to associate the name with coming or name with us as rewarding him. So maybe he recognizes that there's a sound pattern and that he's comfortable with it, but I don't know if he understands that that's a name that he's been given. I'm pretty sure he doesn't. And of course we call him all kinds of different things too. I mean, he's known as Tingy, the Duke, Sausage. There's a few kind of nicknames that we throw around for him. And so I don't think so is probably my answer to that. I think he does recognize certain sound, and he understands that our vehicles and maybe certain people that spend a lot of time with him are not a threat. That I think is possible, but I don't think he understands what his name is.
Dude, this is getting old now. Alrighty.
Welcome to Chitwa watering hole, everybody, where it's looking full, it's looking amazingly good, and it's looking lovely for this afternoon. It's starting to cool down slightly. We've parked in the shade. We were tracking the lions, but unfortunately they've gotten into the dip between Tortured watering hole and where we were, and we weren't going to be able to get you any coverage, so rather than carrying on there, we thought we'd come and get some content and give Tristan a bit of a break. Wonderful to be out in these open areas. Chitwa is really looking good. The surrounding area is looking green and vegetated. The waterbuck looking happy. They like to feed on bulk vegetation, and the closer to water they can find it, the better. All the sedges and reeds are growing strong. The dwarf papyrus, all of these are favoured waterbuck foods. We'll do a little tour around Chitwa just now and see if we can pick up any birds. What we do have is a couple of crocodiles on the left-hand side. One right here at our 9 o'clock, just in front of one of the lodge rooms. There he is, or she. Anybody for a swim? I wouldn't recommend it. Beach bunny birds have definitely been proven to have some form of internal compass. They're able to navigate with the stars, navigate sort of with I don't know what the word is called. They're just able to sort of make their way from north to south. In animals in general, they tend to know where they're going. I think a lot of it might be learned, might be familiarity with the area. I personally believe predators move in relation to the wind, although quite a few people disagree with me. I've physically seen it. And many of the other animals you see around, they basically go to water and back again. So I don't think that requires too much navigation. For a waterbuck, that's kind of like to the water and away. So I don't think they need too much in the way of navigation. But animals that migrate definitely would need some form of navigation. And often what happens is it's the younger ones that learn from the adults. And the birds, that's often the case. You'll see year ones following the adults, or should I say fledglings that have just flown the coop, or follow the adults long distance. In the migration, the wildebeest and zebra, they follow the adults. And elephants, there's definitely learned behavior. The females remember direction. They remember favorite watering holes. They remember times of drought, times of plenty, favorite feeding grounds. So that's a memory thing. And the crocodile, well, they spend their time in water, and it's amazing how when watering holes dry up, how they're able to know exactly where the next one is. That might be a remembered thing. It's hard to say, really. Lara has a very good potential to be attacked by crocodile if you go near the water. They are they're predators. You know, I don't think a crocodile of a medium size would look at me and think, too big. Instinctively, they are always looking for a meal. Whether it happens or not is debatable, but many, many people have lost their lives. Oh, we've got a bird just here on this branch at 1 o'clock. Sorry, Marcello. 1 o'clock over my shoulder. Looks like a dusky flycatcher or a spotted flycatcher. You see him just on that little branch. So if there are crocodiles in a watering hole, be very, very careful. Be very careful. Be very cognizant of the fact that 50-kilometer radius of crocodile-infested water. Yes, he's got quite a stripy chest. Definitely flycatcher. I think it's a spotted, but we can double check. Almost certain it's a spotted. Let's play a little call, shall we? He's not a breeding migrant, the spotted flycatcher. He's a migrant, but he might respond. Very delicate sound, isn't it? Very common non-breeding Palearctic migrant, present from October until about April. And mainly insects, but apparently also feeds on a little bit of fruit. So I didn't know that. So, although... Did you hear the fish eagle calling there? So a very streaky chest on this little fellow. And as with most flycatchers, they do a lot of hawking, where they'll perch and catch insects that fly and then land back at the same spot, often beating it against a branch if it's got a need to be tenderized before swallowing whole. Not the best shot. I mean, try and move up slightly. Maybe we get a better view of him. Don't fly away, flycatcher. Oh, here we go. So little. You got him, Marcello? Don't fly. He went for the poo posture. Yeah, it looks like the dusky. He's also got the streaky, little bit of streaks on the head, on the forehead. There we go. That's a much better view. Streaky chest, streaky head. Very similar to the African dusky. Hang on a second. African Dusky's got a short eyebrow, which this guy does not have. So Dusky's got a white. It's gone. White around the eye, and the African Duskies here throughout the year. So this time of year you have to pay attention because it could be either one of the two. But Tammy, do you like the sound of this bird? Very, very delicate sounds, aren't they? Sounds you almost wouldn't really notice when you're sitting in your garden. You just hear these little and you think to yourself, maybe it's an insect. But indeed it is a flycatcher. Some of the flycatchers are quite vocal. Oh, Hippo thrashing around. Let's see if we can get him. His mouth is open there, Marcello, at 11 o'clock, just before the rock. We first stopped because there was actually a hippo out the water doing some behavior for us, and we thought, well, that would be fantastic to see. That's one pod of hippos over there. Medamu crocodiles don't eat underwater. They actually have to come above the water to swallow. So they've got a gullet pouch behind deep in their throat, sort of prevents the water from going in. So they can grab and drown things underwater. They close that pouch. So when they want to feed and swallow, they rip animals apart and they have to stick their heads above water to properly get it in the mouth. And apparently, if you ever find yourself in the situation, everybody, where a crocodile has got you by the leg, you've got to shove your arm into the throat to push that gullet pouch open so that the crocodile starts to fill with water and will let you go. Remember that. You heard it here. I don't know if you'll remember that in the moment, but that is apparently what you have to do if you find yourself. I reckon it's better to just not swim in crocodile-infested water. That is probably the best bet, boys and girls back home. Don't swim in crocodile-infested water. My dad used to tell me stories of him growing up in northern Rhodesia, which is Zambia these days, and one of the boys would always be right up on the top of the tree, and everyone would be swimming in the river, and he would basically be just watching out for crocodiles. So we've coexisted with them for a long time. Jane, well, it does look like a hippo, doesn't it? The giant rock definitely does look like a hippo. I mean, there's a few hippos there that are blending in. They're going, this is our rock. That one is doing some territorial behavior with his bottom, doing the helicopter poo. The territorial behavior. It's also a very important ecological function because that is organic material that is being deposited in the river or the dam, and it's providing wonderful food for fish and insects, which then provide food for a wonderful amount of other birds. Oh, we got the wider just here on 2 o'clock, top of the small tree. Sorry to interrupt you, Marcello. We got the shaft tail, I think. Top of the tree. No, has he gone? He's around. Shaft-tailed, wider, very long tail. He's trying to attract ladies. Oh, hang on. Oh, that's a grey-headed sparrow, I think. Is that the same bush? That looks like a grey-headed sparrow. Got a grey head and a little white epaulet on the shoulder. A very common bird. Grey-headed sparrow. Seed eaters, just like the widers. But the widers grow in the breeding season these very, very long tail streamers, which are very attractive to the female. It's something known as handicap hypothesis. apologies. It wasn't the shaft-tailed, it was the pin-tailed wider. Mandy, you want to know my favorite bird? It is the, what's it called again? It used to be known as the Melba finch. It's called the green-winged Paitilla. I'll try and find you one. Very, very colourful and pretty bird. We've gotten it on camera a few times. But they're very small, very finch-like bird. Impala's been staring off for quite some time. I think he's got a residual smell. Talamati Pride arrived here this morning. All their tracks have walked past where we are right now to end up where they eventually did. And I think this Impala's thinking to himself, I saw lions earlier. Where are they now? The grass is so long everywhere. He's got no friends to hang out with, so he's being very vigilant. The only friend he's got is an oxpecker. Yeah, some starlings off to the right. Birchill starlings. Elliot, yes, there is. There's always lots of bird activity and animal activity at waterholes. Waterholes are the currency of life. All animals, or most animals, need to come and drink. And it's definitely more exciting sometimes than flat cats. Hippos can be quite fun when they're busy. We've had all sorts of things going down at this watering hole over the years. I had my live buffalo birth right here where we're standing 2-3 years ago. Now the reason Marcel's framing that hippo is because a moment ago he was being quite active. We've all been a little bit active today. The rains have filled the water, which means it's changed the territory size. So suddenly there's more room, suddenly there's more space. You might have other hippos moving in. The depths have changed, so hippos have to sort of reevaluate where they're hanging out and who's got the best spot. Obviously the best spot attracts more females, so it's quite highly contested. So these heavyweights will fight. Obviously this time of year the competition is less because there's more space, but as those prime real estate spots decrease in size and in location, the competition starts getting very fierce. The biggest males will occupy the best spots and eventually there'll be nowhere to go. Nice big yawn. William, that's not the lower jaw, it's the upper jaw the crocodile moves. There you go. But it actually uses its strength to hold the jaw closed. It doesn't use much strength to open. It's a slamming shut of the jaw that requires strength. I do believe it's the top jaw that's not attached, and that is the movable, not the lower jaw. Marcel, am I making sense?
I know with humans it's the lower jaw.
With humans, definitely lower jaw. I do believe with crocodiles, it's the top jaw that moves, and you could hold the crocodile's mouth closed with just 2 fingers, because it requires, it sort of opens automatically on its own. It's quite easy. It's like spring-loaded. That's why when you see a crocodile resting, at complete rest, the mouth opens up to help them cool down. Hippos thought that was quite a particularly funny joke. Oh, he's back again. Sorry, Marcel. He's back. We might get him. Pin-tailed wider. Before we go, let's get him here in frame. There he is. Oh, he just went away. Unfortunately, it's not to beat. He's coming back. Here he comes. Here he comes. And off he goes in the distance, attracting his female. So we're going to move on, try to find another spot on this watering hole to do a little bit more birding.
My favorite animal is a leopard, purely because I just think they are just the epitome of feline grace and power, and the way they can move about in any environment and remain hidden until they want to be seen, I just find incredibly intoxicating, and they're amazingly beautiful.
Catch up with the guides daily here on Wild Earth. For the month of January 2021, we are offering a chance to win a unique Wild Earth expedition to the magnificent Tswalu Kalahari. From the ancient quartzites Koranenberg Mountains to the southern Kalahari's red sand dunes, Tswalu offers what travelers crave most: space and time. The winner will explore this landscape in a vehicle, on foot, or on horseback, with a chance to go behind the scenes with Wild Earth and of course meet the meerkats. The prize includes a 3-night stay for you and a friend at the luxury Motse Lodge, including flights from either Johannesburg or Cape Town. Open to all Wild Earth explorers who have signed up before the end of January 2021. Terms and conditions apply. If you love to watch Wild Earth, then we are inviting you to join our Explorers program. For a monthly subscription, you will have the opportunity to win fantastic Wild Earth expeditions, join our guides for a chat around the fire, receive weekly highlights from our shows, and much more. All the money will go to keeping these live safaris on air, which in turn allows us to escape into nature every single day.
As you can see, Tingana has turned a little bit and has turned towards the sun, which makes for a much prettier kind of view of him. And you can see the sort of landscape that drops off in the background to the next crest. So it gives you a really nice representation of when we talk about katinas and we're talking about seep lines and all those kinds of things. This is what it basically is. It goes crest, seep, drainage line, seep, crest, and so it undulates like that across the landscape that is the Kruger National Park. You get it all the way through. It's quite a nice way to kind of see it from here, but you can see there's one marula just in front of him there. That one was already there earlier. I was looking in the tree now. There is a few, but they're not really ripe, so I think he's safe from being hit on the head by one. I actually have seen a leopard being hit by a marula before. It was quite entertaining. Leopard got the fright of its life. It kind of went under a tree to scent mark and then sat down, and this marula dropped and hit it on the shoulder, and it kind of sprung up in the air and then ran off, looking very perplexed about life. It was a fairly young leopard, so maybe it was a first kind of time underneath a marula and getting hit by one. But he's slowly started to fall asleep again. He was kind of awake for a little bit, turned and looked into the sunset, and then just sort of flopped back down again. He doesn't look too interested in moving right now. Earlier he was a lot more active. He was a lot more aware of his surroundings, listening to the wind, yawning, looking like he was going to move. But since the kind of sun came out, he just sort of turned around and began to kind of have a little bit of a nap. But there we go, he's now yawning. As I say that, he's starting to yawn again. I don't think you could ask for a better view of him than what we have right now. In this time of the year, should I say. I mean, you can get slightly better than this, but the light on his coat is pretty. You know, got that greenery around him on the mound itself. We don't have a blade of grass in front of his face, which is perfect. not naturally. They sworn enemies, so you generally find if a lion finds a leopard, it's going to have a full go at it. I'm just going to reposition slightly. Oh, sorry, there goes my radio. And you'll find that they will try and kill each other if they come across one another. But if you put them in captivity and force them, I suppose it's possible. I think there has been a recorded case of it, I'm not sure. People do some crazy stuff when it comes to cats and crossbreeding and doing, well, just general silliness. Get quite a nice sort of silhouette. The sun's a little bit high, but we can try it. Let's see. Well, what do you think? Or was it a bit high? Might just blow out the picture completely, but we'll try and see if we can get a little kind of silhouette with the sunrise in the background. It's not the best mound for a silhouette. There's a bit too much in the background to make it really kind of stand out. If it was nice and clean and he was standing up, it would be quite a pretty silhouette that we would get of him on the mound itself. I believe all of you are enjoying what you are seeing, which is wonderful to hear. It's always nice when we get kind of good visuals of an animal. Like I said earlier, I'm intrigued to see what plays out for Tingana in the next little bit. We were talking about sawing leopards and those kinds of things and territorial behavior. It's possible that he's just been busy with the likes of Insele, and that's why he hasn't really kind of spent too much time sort of in this area and showing territorial sort of movement in the form of vocalizing, scent marking, these kinds of things. But there has been a few people that have seen him vocalize in the last little bit. So who knows, maybe he's starting to come back into Djuma. It could be also that Tlalamba is starting to come into estrus cycles, and that's attracting his attention here. It could be that Mulawati is pushing up into this area. We know that Andrew had a sighting of Mulawati. In fact, it's probably, I would say, 200 meters from where we are right now, a few weeks ago. So, there's a number of factors that could be bringing him in and forcing him to vocalize again and just generally display more sort of dominant male tendencies. Also, he's in good condition, so there's no reason for him to be nomadic at the moment, unless, of course, Mulawati's really giving him a hard time. We saw it with Mvula when he started to get a little bit older, and Tingana started to kind of push in. That Mvula just gave way, even though physically he was capable still. He just didn't want, maybe just felt like he wasn't able to compete with this younger male. It could be that. But I don't know, it's going to be, like I say, I'm intrigued to see what happens between him, Mulawati, Nhlangula, all of these leopards that are around. At some point, something's got to break, and one of them's going to be dispatched and sent packing as a nomadic individual. You can't have the density of leopards that we have currently without it coming to a head at some point. This area at the moment is completely saturated, if you think about it, between males and females. We just have so many of both. It's making life really, really tricky for all of them. In many ways, their territories are all very, very small. I was rattling off the list of them the other day, but for those that weren't watching, just in the male world at the moment, if you take this northern block that we're in, we have an unknown male on the northern boundary of Buffelshoek. We have Nhlangula, we have Quarantine, Matswiri, that young male that's on Buffelshoek as well. Then we've got Tingana, Hukamuri, Mulawati, Tortoise Pan, Hosana to a degree in the far west, and then there's, I think that they have seen flat rock kind of in this northern block lately as well. So, that's 11 male leopards in what's roughly about 12,000 hectares, which is, when we talk about a male leopard's territory, we're talking about 5,000-6,000 hectares each. So that's not a very big area for that number of males. And then on the female side of things, you've got, I'll start from the east. You've got Inkanyeni's current cub, Monzo, Nsele, Luna, Tlalamba, Tandi's cub, Kuchava's cub, Sibui and her two. Then you've got Shadulu, Kara, Inzutini, Tiani, Moya, Saseka. Who am I missing? There's another female as well that I'm missing, but I think you can tell that's already, we're getting into close to 30 leopards now, sandwiched in this section, and so something will have to give. The males are going to have to compete at some point, and females as well. We know that females do compete when they come across one another and will actually fight. So it's going to be super interesting this summer period to see how things go. With as much water and food availability as there is at the moment, you're not having to worry too much because they can all find something. But as the winter draws in, we're going to start seeing that water shrinking again, and then these animals are going to have to start kind of competing a lot more for the resources than what they had previously. So it's going to be interesting. I want to see the distribution of all these young males as well and where they end up going. All right, well, we'll stay with Tingana. We'll see what he gets up to. In the meantime, let's send you across to some happy underwater animals that I'm sure are jubilant at the fact that the sun is out.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to And Beyond Ngala. We are here at the large waterhole to see what animals we might be able to find. My name is Eric, and behind camera is Sebastian, and we are in the western part of the reserve at the moment, so a completely different area to where we were this morning, and we thought we might as well just come and see if there's any activity that's been happening around this waterhole. So apart from the hippos, not too much else going on. There are some impalas that are slowly making their way into this area. But a really nice view of a small hippo next to its mother. Its head is just poking out now. There are those impalas I was talking about. So we were actually thinking within this area, something that we haven't seen on Ngala for the last 2.5 weeks or so is a pack of wild dogs. And very often when they've left the property, this is one of the places that they return to. With all of this water around and all of those impalas that come into this area, it sometimes provide very, very good wild dog sightings. So that would just be a cherry on top of a beautiful afternoon. These hippos are, they've huddled in one big bunch, and it looks like they're almost starting to get ready to leave the water. It'll still be another few minutes. Tabo, you're asking the difference between a male and a female hippo, and I'm glad we've got a few different examples here so we can show you. Let's start off by looking at the one in the middle. And just look at the size of its head compared to the hippo on the right-hand side, the two hippos on the right-hand side. And that head looks way, way, way bigger. In fact, it looks like there's two males there. So the two on the left-hand side with those two big heads look like the big adult males. And then the ones on the right-hand side with the slightly smaller heads, it's a bit difficult to tell because there's youngsters, there's females, and there's males around this area. But the easiest way to tell is when they start yawning. And male hippos have got these incredibly large tusks in their jaws. And so when they are sizing each other up and wanting to show off their strength and how powerful they are, they open up those jaws as wide as they can to display their big, long tusks. And they're quite formidable. They've got tusks that grow from the top jaw, tusks that grow from the bottom, and then tusks that stick straight out that they almost use as swords when they're fighting. And so when these males come up together, they'll literally open their mouths as wide as they can, and then they clash with each other and they knock each other with those jaws, trying to inflict as much damage as they can. And so this waterhole will be dominated by a big, dominant male, and his territory will essentially just be around this waterhole. And so if there are other males that he's worried about, and that's when he'll start challenging them and chasing them away. And he will tolerate younger males as long as they show then they're not looking to mate with the females and they're not trying to take over his territory. And so if they behave in a submissive way and don't try and challenge him, and then he may tolerate them within this water hole. If not, he'll just basically beat them up until they leave this water. And luckily, in summertime, there's so many little pans around that there's lots of places for them to go. Travis, the lifespan of a hippo is very similar to a rhino. Their life cycle is actually very, very similar. And so a hippo can live until about 30 years or so, 30, 35 years, somewhere in that region. They don't have a very laborious life, and they've got nothing to worry about too much. I think the biggest thing that they will need to worry about, I mean, if I mentioned if it is a male, they need to worry about other males, but females will get tolerated in a water hole. But I think one of the biggest threats to hippos is droughts. And we experienced that in 2016, 2015, where the whole of the Kruger National Park went into a very horrific drought for a couple of years. Just look at the size of that male in the middle there. So he is way bigger than the rest of them. If we get a close look, you might even see all over his body, you might see these old scars and cuts. I think the waters and the sunlight is shining on it towards the back. So that would have just been from old fights. There we go, look at that. So all of that scarring and all of those cuts and scratches are all from him either trying to take over a territory or trying to protect his own by chasing other males around. Yeah, so I was saying one of their biggest threats is drought. And so as soon as they run out of water within an area, their skin starts to dry and crack, and they can only survive, I mean, at the extreme, probably only a couple of weeks out of water before they need to hydrate that skin of theirs again. And now that we've got a nice zoomed in shot, look at the nostrils of that one resting its head up on the head. You can just see its nostril hair poking up. They've all got these very, very short whiskers. And quite nice to see that they are restless. I mean, a lot of the time when we get to hippos, all they're doing is sleeping. But I think we've timed it well enough that it's late in the afternoon and they're starting to get ready to get active, and they'll begin their night. And so they'll leave the water hole pretty much at the undercover of darkness. So we've got about an hour left before they consider coming out, and then they'll start grazing around this area. And because we've got so much rain and the grass is nice and lush, they don't have to go too far. And so they'll basically just graze around this area, and then before sunrise, come back into the same water hole. A nice way of telling how water dependent they are is by looking at all of their eyes, their ears, and their nostrils. They're all right at the very top of their head. And so if they want to, all they need to do is just stick up their heads, take a breath, and then they can go back and protect themselves from the sun. So we're going to carry on from here. I think it's going to be a bit too long until they start moving around, and we'll send you across to Steve.
Thank you, Eric. We've moved on from Chitwa and decided to park up with the beautiful and maybe just allow you all just a few moments to just breathe it all in on this wonderful Monday. Put forward any intentions you might have for the week ahead. We're already well into January, nearly the end of January 2021 already. Can you believe it? Any intentions you might want to set for the year? Very important intention setting. not just in your mind, but writing things down, things you'd like to achieve, people you'd like to talk to, things you'd like to get off your chest, very important. So I'll just allow you to maybe have a few moments to think about that. Beautiful indeed, Megan. Beautiful indeed. The full power of the sun has now emerged from behind the clouds. Stuck in bed, I'm glad you think that, because these moments do mean more than we think sometimes. Silent moments are a very nice time to contemplate, very nice time to really think about what it is that's going on. You know, something I try and do quite regularly, just sit silently, nothing to do but to sit. It takes practice, though, to clear the mind. It takes practice to clear the cobwebs, the distractions. Life is full of distractions that are designed to take us away from the present moment. I found it very powerful in my guiding career, having forced people to sit down and contemplate moments. Many people do struggle. I've done a number of silent meditation retreats that span for 10 days. It's not easy sitting still in silence. Your mind is full of activity. Everything pushing you towards doing something or going somewhere or reliving a past moment or wanting to be somewhere else. Anywhere but here. There's a lot of power in the present moment. That's why they call it the present, everybody, because it is a gift. Never to be relived again. Dear watcher, what a sky. Yes, well, the sun is just creeping out of the clouds there. I think it's going to get even better in a few minutes. I don't know how long the sunset's going to go on for, because there's quite a bit of cloud in the west. Once it gets past this bank, it's going to get obscured quite a bit. So I think for the next few minutes, it's going to be quite beautiful. Nice deep breath in. Conscious deep breathing in and out. Very good way to calm the mind.
Thanks, Able.
Chris, I'm glad you enjoy these quiet moments. I do them for myself as well as for all of you out there. And you're not being able to come here yourselves. Splendid we're able to share it with you, but quiet moments can be done all over the world. A nice quiet spot in your house, in a garden, in a park, anywhere where there's nature or the ability to quieten the mind. It does take practice to do it in a very busy area. Anywhere where there's a bit of stillness and little distraction. I find sitting in the same place regularly definitely amplifies it, the ability to get even quieter. And I've stopped in this very spot many times. That tree has featured in many a sunset. We're going to enjoy it just a moment or two longer.
We are still at this waterhole. We were just about to drive away actually, and we saw that there were some waterbuck that came to join this impala. And we're thinking that it's starting to get quite dark, and this is the time when predators are starting to get active. So I think these animals are making their way out into these open areas to try and find a place to rest for today. So that group of waterbuck are kind of mingling in and out of those thick bushes at the edge of the clearing, and then they keep walking out and then back in. And I'm sure between them and the impala, they'll settle down in one big group. And we've got a really nice dead tree that's around them, and on that dead tree is a beautiful bird. You can just see on the left-hand side there, that white speck. And I'm sure it's a bird that doesn't really need any introduction. It's an African fish eagle. It's really nice to see around this area. So there is a nesting pair that we see pretty much permanently around this waterhole. And I would imagine that this is one of the pair. This morning, Seb and I actually saw a juvenile fish eagle flying up and down the Timbavati River. So I wonder if it's not the same juvenile that comes from this breeding pair. Their nest is behind us, somewhere behind the dam wall. And so, I mean, it doesn't seem like there's too much else going on. We're going to continue our drive, and we're just going to spend some time driving through some open clearings to see if there's not any wild dogs that might potentially be out and about hunting big groups of impala.
As you can see, we are still sitting with Tingana, who's now gone to sleep. He is, I think, decided it's been all too much. At this stage, the sun is actually just starting to go down, and he's just taking a really nice rest. There's a cold wind blowing, though, so I'm hoping once the sun just goes down a little bit that it's going to get him to start getting up and moving along. Maybe we'll even get a saw from him. Wouldn't that be nice if he sawed from on top of the mound? That would be, I think, a perfect way to end our afternoon. So we'll just have to be patient and see what he gets up to. Also, this time of the day, the fire breaks, which is what we're on at the moment, they're a little bit shorter grass in other areas, and so you often find things like impalas and the likes moving onto the fire breaks, out of the wooded areas where they've been feeding for the afternoon, in order to try and stay a little bit safer. And so maybe he spots something like that, and that motivates him to go. I don't think we're going to see him looking for water. Where he walked straight towards a little puddle in the road, which he probably drank from earlier in the day. If not, if we just go down the slope along the road and we turn right, there's a little pan right next to the road. It's not a very big one, but it's enough for a leopard to drink at. So there's that kind of potential as well for him to go in that area too. So Justine, many books will tell you that leopards are nocturnal. The better term for them is crepuscular. So crepuscular means animals that are active the few hours before and slightly after dawn and dusk. And so you find that, and from spending a lot of time with these cats when we were doing a lot more nighttime work here, we were out in some very obscure hours. We found that these guys typically slept quite a lot from sort of 10, 11 o'clock at night. They would kind of be sleepy until about 4 or 5 in the morning in the winter months. So they weren't moving as much. I would imagine in summer it'll be a little bit different because of how hot it gets during the day, that they'll cover a little bit more ground in the summer months at night. But their peak activities are around sunrise and sunset in a reserve like this. Outside of a reserve like this, and in a place where potentially they're persecuted, you'd probably find that they become a lot more nocturnal. And the reason for that is that they have probably worked out that humans are a lot more active during the day. In fact, there's a case of these guys even doing some crazy things in areas where they are persecuted by people. So here we'll hear leopards vocalizing. We see leopards scent marking. I was saying earlier that they defecate on the road, whereas if you go into some of these places where they actually are persecuted, you'll find that instead of defecating on roads and urinating and scraping with their feet, they'll actually claw trees, much like tigers do. So that will be one of their ways of marking territory. They don't call, and when a spotlight comes along at night, they drop their heads so that their eyes don't reflect. So it becomes very, very tricky to see this. And I've spoken to quite a few guides that have actually witnessed this firsthand as a car comes along, how the cats put their heads down so that they don't actually get seen, which is pretty crazy to think about. Here we don't have that problem, so you probably find that they're far more crepuscular here. In other areas they'd probably be a lot more nocturnal if they are persecuted. Alright, I'm going to just go around so we can get a slightly better view of him again, because he's turned. He's decided he wants to face the other way once more. Maybe he's contemplating about the life that he's led and the rich life that he has had. I mean, he's as kind of, if you had to compare him, he would be as big a celebrity as any sort of human celebrity is. And the amount of people that have not only photographed and seen him in real life, but that have watched him via Wild Earth and its ability to, get people to connect with nature is pretty crazy. Like I say, I mean, he's probably been viewed by more people in the world than 99.9% of leopards that are out there, which is a crazy, crazy thought when you think about it. I mean, he's had TV shows in the United States where, 3, 4, 5 million people have seen him live. So he is a bit of a celebrity and a superstar, and I suppose he has earned the ability. Tingana, is this the game we're going to play today? But you're going to get grass up your nose, and it's going to tickle your nose, and you're going to get irritated, and then what? He's just ignoring me today. He's giving me cold shoulder. I think it's because there's lots of rustling coming from behind him with all the bushes that he keeps turning that way. He kind of is getting FOMO, so fear of missing out, by facing this side where the wind is kind of coming over his back and forward. I think he's preferring to be on the side where he can see and hear a lot better. Or he just wants to see the sunset, because he's turned perfectly now to gaze upon the sunset. It's kind of the direction that he's looking right now. James, 100%. I mean, this morning was tricky. He was not obliging at all. It was in long grass. It was difficult to see. So it was nice to see that he was obliging this afternoon. He seems like he's been around quite a fair bit of late, which is also nice because we went through a long period of absence with Tingana where we didn't see much of him at all. So, any time that we do get to spend with him, and I've said this before, is do you ever know when the last time is going to be? It's one of those things out here with older cats is that you don't know. I mean, many of the sightings we had of Karula, Shadow, and Mvula, well, Mvula's a bit different. We knew kind of the last time we saw him that it was probably going to be the last time. But other cats we don't. And so you've always got to appreciate every bit of time you do get with these older cats, particularly when they put on, a beautiful show like this. I mean, he's not really done a lot. He's just sat on a mound, but it's been pretty. So you've always got to appreciate that. And I always think about it because, unfortunately, I don't spend nearly as much time as I used to in the reserve. And so, every time we hear for these kind of shorter stints. You don't know when you go away, and by the time you come back, is he still going to be around? Is, things going to have taken a turn for the worse? And when they do, they often happen quite quickly. So you've got to appreciate it, and you've got to enjoy every moment that you get. I certainly, every time I see him these days, try and spend as long as possible, all things considered, to try and just soak up, as much as I can. Because, like I say, you don't know. I mean, I could be away for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 weeks, who knows, and end up, something happens to him. It's the way that it sometimes can go. So, always very appreciative of the time spent with him, that's for sure. No, sorry, Charlie. I was 6 years old. I didn't get the question properly. I just heard, do leopards have? And then, unfortunately, with the wind, I missed the last part about it. So I'll just wait quickly. Dens. Charlie, so yes, leopards do have dens, but not male leopards. So a male leopard won't have a place where he goes every night to go and sleep, or, he'll have certain trees that he likes to use, or certain termite mounds that he likes to sit on, but he doesn't have a den. Females have dens, and the dens are primarily used for their cubs. So what they do is they have their little babies, and they put them in there for safety. A den for a leopard is a place where the cub can grow up, because remember, when they're born, the cubs are very, 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 very small. They can't see nicely, they can't do anything, they can't defend themselves. And so mom needs to find a very secretive place to put them so that they are hidden from dangerous animals like hyenas, other leopards, and lions. And so they will then get maybe a hole in a tree, a riverbank where there's some roots, a rocky outcrop, even sometimes termite mounds, and they will then put their little babies inside there, and that will be their den site. And the den site moves a lot, because as the babies grow, they make a wee, they go to the toilet, they get fleas in there, and so it starts to smell, and that attracts other predators to it. So after 2-3 weeks, they'll then pick the cubs up, move them to a new den, and so they'll keep using dens until the cubs are big enough that they can stay on their own anywhere, really. And that's normally at about start to see less denning at about 7 to 8 months. Then they can really be kind of left anywhere, because by then they're pretty big, they're able to climb, they're able to kind of know what danger is, and can be left to their own devices a lot more. And by the time they're a year old, then they don't need a den at all. They're able to do whatever they want, and are pretty much at the stage where they could be self-sufficient if something happened to mom. So yeah, dens are an important part of a leopard's lifespan and lifestyle in the female world. In the male world, it's only when they're little do dens really mean something to them. Ian, that's one of their favorite little desserts after an impala. So it's why they hang impalas in marula's trees, is that they kind of put it over the branch and they come down and slowly just savor a marula fruit as a little bedtime snack. No, I'm joking. They don't eat them at all. I've never seen one eating a marula fruit. I don't know. I mean, they obviously feed on grass every now and then, but that's more just to try and clean the digestive system out. It's not designed to really be a food or a nutrition point of view, and the way that their stomachs are designed and the way that everything is put together, meat is what keeps them going. And so yeah, I've never seen one eating a marula fruit before. I've seen jackals eat one before, and kind of put it in their mouths and then actually feed off them, which is where the name jackalberry comes from, is because jackals do actually eat fruit every now and then. But never seen a lion, leopard, cheetah, hyena eat a marula fruit before. They know that it's not really food for them. They sniff around and then they just carry on. Must be quite traumatic at this time of year to be a leopard, because the marula trees generally are their favorite. You can actually see that this particular marula tree has been used by a leopard before. If you look up the kind of length of the bark, you'll see places where bits of bark have actually been pulled off of the tree, and that's often a case when a leopard climbs. There's looser pieces, and as the claws hit it, they pull these little chunks off as the leopard goes up. But at this time of the year, with all these marula fruits that drop and elephants that disturb the marula trees, I'd imagine that they are preferring to try and find other trees rather than marulas, although marulas are the best and most comfortable in this particular area. They have the nicest branches and nice shady crowns in the summer months. Ooh, we almost just got hit by a marula. Did you see that, Paul? It was a marula that was falling, and I've been hit by one on the head. It's not very pleasant being under a marula tree and being peppered by them. The one day I had miscalculated slightly watching an elephant feeding off marulas and thought that I was out of the radius of the tree. It just so happened that I wasn't. And when he went and headbutted the tree and the 40 million marulas fell down, we got absolutely peppered by them, which wasn't so great. And the manager of the camp wasn't so happy with the dents that were in the car's bonnet. All right, well, we're going to stay with Ngala. In the meantime, though, we're going to send you to another part of the African wilderness.
Alrighty, guys, quick thing. Quite amazing. So, sorry, I don't know where we got cut off the previous time, but we are going over to look. Well, we went over to come and look for the lions, rather. The cheetah's tracks didn't make any sense. I was hoping the guinea fowl would come back onto the road, though, because we just saw the first chick of the season. Mini guinea fowl. But unfortunately, it seems like with the chicks being, hatched, that they're a little skittish of us. Let's go a bit forward, see if we can get a view of them. I don't know in this long grass if we will be able to see the chick, though, but pretty cool. With a guinea fowl, they lay crazy amounts of eggs. They can, in a nest with a hen sitting on the nest, have up to sometimes 30 eggs. You have them. Oh, yeah, you can just see them moving through the grass there, but it's going to be tough. But yeah, so they can have up to about 30 eggs in one nest, and because of that, they sometimes double layer the eggs when they lay them. So with that being the case, and with them being ground nesting birds, they have quite a thick eggshell. Strange enough, funny enough, if you had to put them make them the size of an ostrich, their eggs would actually be stronger than that of an ostrich and thicker, just to be able to withstand that pressure. But yeah, the reason for them to lay so many eggs is they get eaten quite often. So with that being the case, they have to reproduce quite a bit. So that's why they lay so many eggs in a nest. And they're also monogamous, so you'll find them during winter forming flocks, and summertime they'll split off into their pairs, and it will most definitely be the same pair as the previous year. If it's now a new pair or one of the guys got eaten in the relationship, then obviously they'll find a new mate. But typically speaking, as long as both the male and the female that's paired together live, they'll link up again and go off in their own direction when summertime comes and it's time to nest. But yeah, guys, we're going to go check another waterhole quickly. For the meantime, we're going to send you over to Steve, okay?
Welcome to Biffelsook Watching Hole, everybody, where we've got a accumulation of village weavers going crazy, building their nests, attracting the females. I'm trying to see if there's any other species in there of weaver. So far, I've only seen village. Oh, hang on, there's a lesser masked weaver at the bottom. Village, 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 village. Right at the bottom there's, just move to the right, bottom right of the screen is a lesser masked weaver. They make a slightly different nest, but the rest seem to all be village weavers. If you see any different birds in amongst there, it's females. Grant a stunning scene while weavers doing their nest building is always a really, really cool thing to watch. It's very, very loud. Lots of activity. And I mean, if you're a lady, how would you choose amongst all these boys? And yet they do. There we go, there's all boys on the top. They've just gone for a feed. And now they've come back to display and maybe look as pretty as they can. Hello, are you watching us? Look at me, look at me. Now, how do I know it's a village weaver, everybody? There on the left is a southern masked. You see he's got, oh, hang on, that's a lesser masked on the far left. The village weaver has got the black mask that just touches the top of the beak. And they've got a very dirty back, streaky back. The southern masked has got a less streaky back. And they got a black onto the forehead, both of them with a red eye. The lesser masked weaver's got quite a full mask on the face, quite round up onto the forehead, and they got a yellow eye. So those are the three masked weavers that you commonly find. And you do find them in mixed groups. Although last year there were lots more of the lesser masked and the southern masked weavers around. Now it seems as if the village weavers are really dominating. Just going to be quiet for a moment, allow you to listen to all the noises. Lindo. They're whistling while they work, you see. Linda likes how they make all the sounds and work at the same time. Well, Linda, the sounds that they're making is when they've finished a nest. They finish it, and then they're happy with their construction, and then they attract the female. There we go. You see the one on the left there? He's dancing. The two of them are dancing because there's a female right next to them watching. All three of them now going, come on. See, we go. She's gone in the left nest there. He's gone to say, come, look at mine. Look at mine. You don't want to look at this one. That's not the best real estate. So the female goes inside. She moves around. She ascertains whether it's a good fit, whether she's quite happy, whether she's comfortable. And if she's happy, then she will mate with him. There we go. The bottom one, he's like, yes, have a look at mine. He'll mate. That she'll lay eggs inside the nest, and then he'll build another nest. Once the nests go brown, like that one in the middle right of the screen, the males will start building another one anyway. And like that one on the far left, it looks a bit scraggly and unfinished. If females don't choose a nest, often the males will actually, or the female herself, will pluck it off, drop it into the water as if it was nothing. Quite incredible how these birds have adapted to build these nests. And what is quite a dramatic scene as well is that the tree that they're using was a magnificent torchwood that towered over the Biffelsook watching hole here on the southern side. It was always a very lovely feature. We had buffalo weavers nesting in it. You can see the buffalo weaver nest. I don't know if it's still being active. It's right on the top of the tree now. But the southern masks and the lesser masks in the village never used to nest in this tree. They used to nest in this buffalo thorn to my left. Now that tree's fallen over and it's right in the water, it served a beautiful purpose for breeding. So what we see as calamity and catastrophe and destruction brings new life and entertainment. Holistic, the birds nest over the water because it's the most inaccessible place to get for predators. Obviously, snakes can access it, and certain birds, but it's as out of reach as you can get. And obviously, the one that's in the best spot is more likely to be chosen, but the community nesting as well is important because they can, as a group, fend off predators. Sometimes you'll find a loner who goes and builds a nest on his own somewhere, and, well, he doesn't attract anybody. It's all about the real estate, and that, over the water holistic, is prime real estate. Prime real estate. There we go. The one at the top has just arrived with some more leaf material. You see that, Marcel? Right up top, he's busy building. Starts with the ring, and then every individual strand is then woven inside. Many trips are taken to bring grass, and obviously it has to be timed with the season when the grass is green and long and growing. And they can breed later into the season if there is indeed more grass to build the nests. Neither the weavers are quite characteristic in their woven nest. I'm trying to think. So the red-headed weaver builds a very similar one. All the weavers we have in South Africa build very similar ones, apart from the buffalo weaver, which builds that big cacophony of a nest just to the right. If we go a little bit, you'll see it. A little bit right, there it is. A lot of the birds that we find build little cup nests. Sunbirds and finches. Many finches will use old weaver nests. So they'll breed later in the season, actually use the nest that someone else has built. But many of our forest birds, many birds will actually nest in cavities in trees or banks. So the most characteristic are indeed the weavers that are able to weave beautiful little balls on the end. All of the large birds don't have the potential to build a woven nest, so they do platforms. Sometimes they'll nest on top of other birds' nests. So there's cavities, there's cup nests, there's ball nests like waxbills will do, ball nests as well, that you'll get with many of the sunbirds. And then, like I said, finches will actually use these nests. And all the breeding parasites or brood parasites, well, they don't build nests at all. They are very cheeky. A Deirdre's cuckoo, for example, will be looking to capitalize on these fellows and lay eggs in the nests of the weavers to rear for themselves. Charlotte, very much like a Christmas tree. Little baubles on the Christmas tree. They don't light up at night, I'm afraid, though. Maybe if we plug them in. Marcel, can we sort out a power source? It's a bit late. Most people say, I think, by bad luck, if you have your Christmas tree after the 16th of January. Am I mistaken? I don't know. I haven't had a Christmas tree in a very long time. Let's get into that time when they're going to be finishing up for the evening. Very industrious. Takes them on average 9 to 15 hours to build a nest, which I think is incredible. Many trips to collect the perfect grass material, which is then lined with specific types of of downy feather-like material, soft licheny material, which will make it nice and soft. And a lot of that is done by the female once she's satisfied with the construction. It must be durable, must be hardy, mustn't have any holes or leaks. So only once. The female will lay the eggs in there. Once they fledge, she might breed again if the season's long enough, but as far as I'm aware, the male will have to build a new nest for her. That might be reasons to do with parasites, pests, mites and fleas, nest fleas, or nest ticks, soft ticks that she could bring in while incubating. Could become a potential damage for the youngsters. But one male will build numerous nests in a season once he's acquired a mate. Once he's mated, he's got no parental care. And as soon as he's mated with a female, he starts building another nest and will stay around to defend the area of any predators. But that's as much parental care as he provides. He doesn't go and help feed. So these nest sites are always in areas of high nutrient or in high resource abundance, so that the female is able to sustain her nestlings on her own. It wouldn't work if there wasn't enough resources around. They'll feed on fruits, mainly seeds, grass seeds, even some nectar. Small insects provide nourishment in the form of moisture for the chicks when they are in the early stages. Dear watcher, I actually have no idea how much they need to eat each day. They're not very big birds or very heavy birds, but all due to their size, their requirement. They're very busy this time of year. Females need to produce eggs. Their requirement increases. The males need to be in good condition, so their food requirement is higher than it would normally be, so as to maintain their plumage. If they're in poor condition, they won't reach that breeding plumage. So those males that you see, they won't get that very golden color with the dark head, contrasting dark head. That won't happen if they're in weak condition by any means, which means that he's advertising himself as a strong, fit provider. Although he doesn't provide, he just builds a nest. But he's got to look the part. Like a good real estate agent is always dressed immaculately. You'll never go and buy real estate from someone who's looking shoddy and unkempt. Would you, Marcel? Maybe not. Maybe you would. Maybe some of you would prefer that. I don't know. But it's definitely not the way things work these days. A nice suit and tie or a beautiful skirt or dress. Manicured. Lisa, yes, I do find them fascinating too. You can spend lots of time with them. I really enjoy it when you get a colony like this and you find a snake or a monitor lizard trying to get in, or a Diedrich's cuckoo pair trying to do their thing. It really does start causing all sorts of chaos and havoc around, and the birds then definitely do become very, very busy. slowly move on, head away from the dam. Maybe we'll be lucky, pick up someone on their way here to drink.
Welcome to my car. This is Wendy, and she's my favorite. She would love to have your name engraved on her so you can be with her every single time she goes on a safari here in Djuma. If you become a Wild Earth Explorer, you will have the opportunity to buy an engraved tag which we will attach to her. We will make sure to send you a digital picture to show you exactly where you are sitting on her. You will have front row seat in every single sighting.
Hi, I'm Damon, and I come to you live every day from and beyond Pinda Private Game Reserve here in South Africa. I think the most underrated wild animal is the buffalo, and I think many people want to see them because they're a member of the Big Five. But then once it's ticked off the list, it's on to go and look for things like big cats or herds of elephants. It's quite a sensory overload, taking in their smell and the sounds of them moving around you.
Catch up with the guides daily here on Wild Earth.
My name is Taylor McCurdy, and I work for Eco Training. I love hearing from all of the viewers. However, I particularly enjoy those of you who have been watching for a few years. Your questions are just so advanced, and they really get me thinking. If you'd like to ask a question on Wild Earth, you need to register on our website. Once you've done that, head to the live safari page and submit your questions below the live feed.
Have you been watching Wild Earth and dreamt of being right there on safari with one of the guides? Well, now you can. Wild Earth is offering you a chance to buy a ticket to dream. You or a friend can hop on board a live Wild Earth show and join our guide on safari. The ticket is redeemable at any of our locations, anytime in the future. Only a limited number of tickets are available, so don't wait. Get your ticket now and start dreaming. Terms and conditions apply.
As you can see, we're still with Tingana. He's awake now because a hyena came past briefly. He snarled at the hyena, and then the hyena left very quickly. And now he's just sitting regally. But there's this most beautiful kind of pinkish light that's coming through, particularly behind him. Some of the clouds have taken on quite a pinky kind of hue as the sun is setting down. It's such a pretty kind of view. It's of pastel colors in the background of this kind of sky. Just see those kind of pinks coming through a little bit on the sky itself. Like I said, nice. I'm sure he's got to be about ready to start moving now. It's that time of the day. It's gotten kind of very cool. It's quite dingy now, as well as a bit of cloud cover where the sun would have set. So it's not exactly bright in terms of a sunset, and I would expect him to start actually moving around. In fact, I would have expected him to move long ago. It's not a hot day at all. I actually was scanning this marula just in case I missed a carcass, because sometimes you're so focused on leopards you don't actually realize that they're sitting under a tree with a carcass in it, especially a small one. And he kept looking up in the tree, and then when the hyena arrived, I thought, let me just double check, but there definitely isn't a carcass. Otherwise, I think he would have been up there long ago feeding on it. He's not as full as I first thought this morning, or he's digested quite a lot during the course of today. In Ndlovu, when cornered by a lion or by a leopard, should you run? Firstly, I'm worried if you are being cornered by a leopard as to where you're hanging around, because leopards generally are in areas that you shouldn't just come across them. But if hypothetically you did come across a leopard randomly wherever you may be, it depends on a lot of things, but no, generally you shouldn't run. Running often triggers cats' chase response, and is the worst thing that you can do. Normally what you do with the leopard is if you come
if you see it, is to try and not show that you've seen it. Try and just walk past as though it's not there. Often with the leopard, it'll just try and kind of hunker down and just watch you and let you kind of pass. If it's cornered though, you've got a very, very big problem. A leopard is not an animal you ever want to be cornered. They get pretty feisty pretty quickly when they feel like they've got nowhere to go, and you're going to have very little option to make it through. What I would kind of advise you then is to try and just increase the distance as slowly as possible. And if the cat is aggressive towards you, you're going to need to try and stand your ground and make a bit of a show of it. But I've yet to see many people come out of cornering a leopard looking very good. Most people that corner cats, particularly leopards, end up being severely injured. I actually had a story the other day from somebody that lives in East Africa, and they were telling me how there's 4 guys cornered a leopard, and only one of them walked out alive. The other 3 were all dead in a matter of a few seconds, and the 4th guy was very, very, very badly injured. So you've got to be careful with them, and if you're walking in a place where you think there's a leopard and it is a very tight spot and it feels like you could corner it, my advice to you is to not go anywhere near there, is to rather just back away and leave it, and the animal itself will move away. And even if it's in something like a house, just leave the doors open and move out of the way. It'll eventually come out. It's not going to want to stay in there. So don't corner a leopard if you can help it, is my advice to you, rather than actually trying to face down something. But if you come across one in the bush, it's a very different story. Most of the time they're going to try run away, or they're going to try and hide from you. If you spot it on foot, you just walk as though you haven't seen it, and they most times will just stay there. The only time you'll get a very aggressive response is if you've potentially stood too close to their kill, or they've got a cub and you've gotten somehow between that leopard and a cub. And if that's the case, then you've done a poor job, because when tracking cats, it's very important that you pay attention to the tracks that you're following. And if you see a cub track, you need to then start to be very, very aware of what you're doing. And normally it's often a sign that you're going to kind of pull back and not carry on with that footprint. So those are little kind of bits of pearls of wisdom, if you want to call it that. But the biggest one to take from that is don't corner one of these guys. They might look, even a cat like Tingana, he might look as though he's super relaxed. He's sitting here next to us in an open vehicle. But if we had to corner him, I can assure you that we would not have the strength to deal with what he could do to you. So best not to play that game at all. Now, funny, changing subject slightly, but also talking about endangering one's life. I was talking to you earlier about marulas, and with the wind, there was a big gust of wind, and poor Mpo in the back here got hit by one, and the bonnet also took a nice mighty blow. Here's the one culprit. It managed to bounce off the bonnet and into my glass of water. So this is the little culprit. Now, this is an unripe marula fruit. It's not one that is really fit for consumption yet. They go yellow when they fit, and it's still quite small. This one will be mostly just the seed inside, and won't be kind of very useful. When they are fully developed, they'll probably be not twice the size, but about 1.5 times the size of what you see here, and they'll take on a much more yellow coloration, and then they're perfect to be able to eat. When they start to go past yellow and then brown, that's when they're going a little bit too ripe, but then can be made into a beer or a jam or something like that. But yes, this was the culprit. Poor lucky didn't get it on the head, but he said he's fine. Didn't hurt too much, did it? No, he's shaking his head. Paul's got guns the size of a 50 cal, so we don't need to worry too much. He's a big, strong, strapping lad. So I'm pretty sure a little marula bouncing off his leg. I think the marula itself is probably more bruised than Mpo at this stage of the game. Tingana's definitely aware. He's kind of been looking a lot and staring into the same area, which is weird. So Anna, from the Sabi Sands, no, there was a plan at one point to potentially relocate leopards up into Malawi. But that was, I don't think they ever did any from the Sabi Sands. I never heard of any going across. Quite a few leopards from areas close to this, so particularly the escarpment close to Hoedspruit, there was a few there that went over to Malawi. So, it's there is most definitely some movement of leopards, but within the Sabi Sands, no. A lot of these cats are so well known that no one really wants their hard-earned relaxed leopards, because it takes time to relax these cats. It's not like a leopard is just born being like, I'm just going to sit on this termite mound and pose for all of you. It's learned behavior from its mother. And so when you invest a lot of time into tracking them, finding them, getting them to the point where they're habituated and viewable, getting rid of them out of an area is never that great. So no real movement from the Sabi Sands, but from other parts of Africa, yes, there is movement of leopards. That does happen from time to time. The thing about leopards, though, is they generally actually have done quite well compared to a number of the other predators. If you compare them to cheetah, wild dogs, and even lions, they're able to survive in pretty harsh conditions, and even right under the noses of a lot of people. They somehow have this ability to, when they don't want to be seen, to remain undetected. And that means that, they have suffered far less persecution. It's not to say that they haven't been persecuted, because they have, but they've suffered far less than what, like I say, some of those other predators have, and are far less likely to be found by people. And so, the populations of leopards is probably bigger than all of the other cats, but in saying that, still decreasing due to habitat loss. And then obviously there's a cultural thing in some parts of the world where, leopard skins are used in traditional ceremonies and those kinds of things. And as populations expand, so the number of animals that are being used are ever mounting, which is always cause for concern. So yeah, leopards are also an animal that we need to take care of and make sure that we conserve, and that's why there's these movement projects every now and then. It's just to try and kind of keep populations in areas where they have been badly affected, kind of keep their populations running. The problem with them, though, is often if they're moved, they become ghosts. You really struggle to see them very much. They end up, being quite traumatized by the moving process and not very trusting of cars and people after that. You can imagine being shipped in a crate from South Africa to a foreign place where you have to figure out what's going on. It's not an easy way to do things, and they typically don't respond to relaxing as well as what lions or cheetah or wild dogs would. Emily, not as water dependent as something like a buffalo or an elephant. These guys can obtain a lot of their moisture from the kills that they have. It's why they're able to survive in semi-arid areas like Tswalu, and even into the desert systems of Namibia and the Kalahari. So they're not as water dependent, like I say. They can go without water and get the moisture that they need, or water that they need, from the animals that they potentially are hunting and killing. So yeah, pretty good. But they do need fresh water every now and then. They can't survive solely off the animals that they kill. Sometimes, particularly in those arid areas, those cats are feeding off very small creatures. A lot of the time they're eating little mice, and they'll even attack things like bat-eared foxes, and so it's not huge meals like the ones here that get these massive impalas and the likes. And so they're smaller, but their water requirement, they still need to find water at some point, and that's why a lot of the reserves in those areas have little pumped pans, which affords the ability for a lot of animals to be able to survive and stay in the area rather than being more nomadic. That's also why the territories are so large that side. Male leopard there, well, they're 120,000 hectares as opposed to the 6,000 hectares here in the Sabi Sands. All right, we're going to carry on sitting with Tingy. Hopefully he's going to wake up and kind of move. He is awake, but move. In the meantime, let's send you to Mo.
All right, guys, so yeah, we had a look at the waterhole. Nothing coming through on that side, so we actually drove around the mountain to try and see if there's any lion tracks coming out from the valley where we had the tracks going in yesterday, because if they didn't go to that waterhole, which we went to, and they did come out of the valley, they must have come out on this side. So we just want to make sure to see if there's something happening over there. As you can see, it's quite thick, so the grass is not making it easy for us. The grass seeds are quite hectic. I'm actually covered in grass seeds at the moment. With that being the case, it's making life all the more interesting. But yeah, we're hopeful that these lions came out on this side and maybe we get a quick glimpse of them. Dave, yes, it will. It will go into a resting period. So the shoots that are out at the moment, once they've gone into full seed, which is basically now, they'll continue being alive until the first cold comes, when they go into their resting period. And as soon as the grasses go into the resting period, the existing shoots won't really die off, but it won't grow the next season. So it will have to be fed on or trampled, and then the plant itself will make new shoots as soon as the next rainy season starts. So yes, unfortunately, all of the grass that we have here currently will not continue growing throughout the winter or into spring this year. But that's just the cycle of the grass species, so it's not anything new to us. The animals also are used to that. There's some of the grasses which is quite good during winter time, that keeps their nutritional value quite well, and then there's some of the grasses that are not so great during winter time, but those grasses are typically very good during summer. So we have sour and sweet grass types. The sour grasses are typically very good, very nutritional during the growth period. So what that will mean is, sorry, I just want to check something quickly. What that means is the summertime feeding on it is exceptional. However, when it does become winter time, the nutritional value gets drawn back into the roots of the plant, and then you end up not having a very nutritious plant itself. With the sweeter grasses, they are good during summertime as well, but very good during winter. So when they go into their resting period, the nutritional value remains in the stems of the grass or in the shoots of the grass, and with that being the case, they are much better suited for wintertime grazing. Now guys, there's a way in the distance, I don't know if we'll be able to see it now anymore. Yeah, we will. Can you see the oryxes moving there? It's amazing how the sunlight just lights them up during this time of the day. We're gonna try and get them on the screen for you, just to the right. There's like white spots moving around, but this is now very far away, guys. That's the advantage of being out here, on a high point, having a little bit of a vantage point to be able to see this far. You can see something walking more than a kilometer away from you. I wish that was the case with the lions at the moment, but it seems like they are playing hard to get. Stunning scene though, beautiful, beautiful. Always nice to have the sunset in the Kalahari. I mean, it's truly spectacular. And just hearing all the birds starting to vocalize one last time, to be able to get to that evening period, now that it's cooling down, they all give one last call because the sound travels further. But yeah, guys, we're going to quickly just see if we can pick up on these tracks for the lions. For the meantime, we're going to send you over to Tristan with his leopard, okay?
hopefully you find them. It's the time of day where lions should be starting to get a little more on the active side. So hopefully they will start to make an appearance. Tingana's still kind of sitting the same as he was. He's been turning and round, up and down. There's something that he's unsettled by it. Kind of keeps staring. He turns and then he keeps turning back and then staring in the exact same spot. So I don't know if maybe something has been moving around that's making him feel a little bit anxious. But anyway, we'll just have to see how it goes. Been a beautiful afternoon with him, though. It's been so special just to spend quality time with him, and we had nice light on him at one point, and just a nice termite mound that he managed to choose for us, which is good. And he's at least been fairly awake. Often with Tingana, when he's in full sausage mode, he can be kind of out cold like he was this morning, where he just lies in the grass and you don't get too much from him. But today he's been nice. His head's been up a lot of the time, looking around, very aware of surroundings, and has made for a pretty impressive sight for most of the afternoon. It's amazing the difference, though. I'm just looking at the picture from the camera. I'm so much lower. I've got a complete silhouette of him sitting on top of the mound, which is rather pretty, I must be honest. Unfortunately, I can't really get the camera any lower than that. The terrain doesn't allow for it. But we'll see. Maybe if he stands up, it will look a little bit better. What's wrong, boy? Can you not get your paw comfortable? You can see how those eyes have changed in terms of how much they're dilating now, getting bigger and bigger as he's allowing more and more light into them to be able to see what's going on. And the kind of time of day that we're at now, a leopard really is starting to come into its own. It's starting to become the kind of apex, well, not apex, but the dominant part of the relationship with prey and predator. During daylight hours, the prey has a little bit more of an advantage in that they can see and hear very well, but at night, these guys' sense of sight just puts them into a whole nother league. That, coupled with those long whiskers that they have. Just heard an alarm call. Sounded like a nyala or a kudu barking. Exactly in the direction he's staring at. Haven't heard it again. Leopards will just go under a bush most of the time and just sit there and look very miserable about life when it starts to rain. You'll find that if they're sitting like this and all of a sudden it starts to storm, they just run to the nearest thick covered bush, get in underneath there, and then they just sit and wait. And as soon as the rain is out, then they move to a place where it's kind of a little dry and they can groom themselves and get rid of all the grass seeds and moisture on them. Unfortunately, that's just the way life is. Lions are the exact same, and cheetah. None of them really enjoy it, so they will try their hardest to find some sort of shelter, like a tree. And normally small bushes that are very, very foliated, so things like roundleaf teaks, small bush willows, those really work very, very well in this area for a leopard to get in underneath. They typically are able to stay relatively dry in comparison to being out in the open in these pounding storms. And the other day it was amazing. We were talking about the storm and the lightning and that it was getting closer and closer. And Steve and I drove into the garages and parked the cars. And as Steve turned off his engine, it was like somebody opened a shower tap and it just came hammering down. It was the most perfect timing for the end of our game drive. Couldn't have been better. But in weather like that is exactly what would have happened. A lot of the cats would have been caught unawares because all of a sudden it just would have, dropped. Although they're very perceptive to it. They would have heard it coming and they start moving and getting themselves into a place where they're feeling a little bit more comfortable. Can you see the clouds in the background are actually moving quite fast? It's pretty cool to watch how quickly the clouds are drifting past the back of his head. actually going to just sit quietly for a little bit and let you guys enjoy the sounds of the night, because there's quite a few insects and frogs calling as well. And the wind is completely negating our quiet moment, but it's fine, it's a natural sound, so we'll let you carry on listening to it. This would be the most opportune time for him just to let out a rasping saw, wouldn't it? I feel like if he was going to do one, it would be now, or in the next little bit. Jabu all the time. Leopards are known to be thieves. They will steal from cheetah regularly, wild dogs, sometimes even from hyenas, and of course they steal from each other a lot. A male leopard dominates female leopards heavily. If he finds a female with a kill, he'll take it off from her. So they are, just like hyenas, just like lions, hugely opportunistic when it comes to scavenging. Poor hyenas get the worst reputation because they do it more frequently than the cats do in some areas. And so they get this bad name, and they've been painted very badly because of it. But actually, lions probably, in some places, scavenge more than hyenas do, and leopards do it as well. They will take kills from other predators, even if it's something like say, a serval or a caracal. They'll dominate those too. They're pretty powerful creatures. So the only thing that they won't steal from 99 times out of 100 would be lions. Every now and then you get a brave or fairly dim-witted leopard that will try and steal from lions, and generally doesn't end very well for them. There has been a few that have been successful. There was a male down in the south and Sabi Sands that has managed to do it, and I've seen some sneak in while lions have been passed out and grab a piece and run up a tree. But that's very brave. Lions are hugely dangerous to leopards. And this cat particularly, talking about scavenging, he does it all the time. At one point, I actually honestly don't believe he would be here today if it wasn't for the fact that he was so opportunistic and so scavenger-driven during the end of 2017, beginning of 2018, when Hosana and Tamba pretty much single-handedly fed Tingana by catching as many meals as they did, and him showing up and just being bulkier and bigger and him muscling them off kills. He took a number of kills from both of them, and he got his condition back from being very, very depleted to what you see now, where he's in fine fettle. So he is probably the number one kleptomaniac of the leopard world out here. It's part of the reason why we call him Sausage, is just because he always managed to find food and was always fat at one point. And it was generally at the hands of Hosana, Tamba, Tlalamba, Tandi. He robbed them all quite a lot. And still does to this day. I mean, if he comes across Tlalamba now on a kill, he'll take it 100%. The problem is if he comes across bigger male leopards, that's always a bit of a different story. Alright, well, we'll sit with him. We might as well. We've been patient all afternoon, hoping that he would move. I'm quite surprised that he hasn't, but let's see, give it a shot. Maybe he'll move in the next little bit.
Alrighty, guys, so we've literally just cut through the valley to the other side of the mountain. I'm going to show you the valley quickly. And there's absolutely no tracks coming out. And just as I say that, I see tracks on the road. So, okay. Here they Yeah, they're heading out here, so they're going like this. Let's see if we can quickly pick up on them. But I thought they were still in the valley up until now. So the valley behind us, we don't have any signal. That's where we had the lion tracks yesterday as well, going in there. So possibly we might have a little lucky strike here. Even if we just find them now and we'll have them for tomorrow morning, well, we'll know where they were for tomorrow morning. That'll also be great. Let's see, maybe we get lucky. I know there's a little water hole type of thingy during summer just here close by, so they might be lying there. But yeah, it is getting to that point where the light is just insane at the moment. It is a little difficult to look in that direction currently, but the sunset is just going to be beautiful. These lions are still walking on the road here. Males though. So yeah, guys, we'll quickly have a look and see if we can come right. If we.
Hello, everybody. We are on the search. We have got the spotlight on and have been searching for some time, but the vegetation is incredibly dense. There's been a few scrub hairs that have popped out for a moment and then disappeared again. But other than that, it's been pretty quiet, but a wonderful evening nonetheless. There is wind picking up, and it feels like some more weather on the horizon. I don't think we need more rain. The grass is definitely at a height I don't think I've seen it before. The middle maniki, those of you from South Africa know what that means, but middle maniki is the little two-track line in the middle of the road. Not so much on this road, but on many of the roads we've been on today, it's the seeds are hitting the eyes. Marcel's been having allergies all morning because of the seeds. So it's a wonderful time of year if you're a seed eater or a nest builder in the form of weavers, or if you're trying to hide. Jabu, we don't really like that kind of a question, to be honest. We don't. If you're getting attacked by wild animals, you're doing something wrong. So ethical guides shouldn't be getting attacked by animals at all. If you shouldn't be pushing buttons, you should be respecting animal space. And if a guy says I've been attacked 3 or 4 times by an animal, well then clearly something wrong with that person's potential guiding ability. So we need to be able to read the signs. Obviously, situations do come up every now and again, but it shouldn't be something that happens very often. Vehicle-based guiding, you should be able to read the signs of animals and then have your safety net, your ability to move away before anything like that happens. You've got to ask yourself, why exactly was that animal being aggressive? Because animals aren't aggressive in nature, they are defending themselves. So someone has defended themselves, or why did someone become aggressive with me? Because I overstepped myself, or I pushed some boundaries or buttons, and then all that animal is doing essentially is defending itself, and we take that as being aggression. But essentially many animals are extremely fearful of man, and if you understand that and give the animals plenty of space, you shouldn't have any negative reactions. And if you do in the beginning, you should learn from those mistakes and ideally not do them again. Okay, so we're just on the edge of quarantine here, seeing if we can maybe get ourselves a last-minute leopard, because that is something that does happen very regularly. Hashtag last-minute leopard. It might happen. We were sitting doing the fireside chat just over there last night, and a leopard walked down this road, calling. We don't know who it was, to be honest. Could have been Tingana. But we found a last-minute leopard on this particular road many a time in the past. Maybe today is another one of those days. It's a very popular route through the middle of Djuma. The lions came this way as well this morning. Turns out it was the Talamati Pride that headed on down. But everybody, it's been a wonderful evening. We've thoroughly enjoyed hosting you out on safari from all of our wonderful locations. Don't forget, we will be live with you again tomorrow morning, same time, same places, with wonderful excitement and enthusiasm from the African wilds. Who knows what we might provide for you tomorrow. We do appreciate your questions and comments. We'll see you tomorrow morning. Until then, good night and goodbye.